Well, a rough day, but a super group is up the road, and there's a bit of cheekiness, I can tell you, going off further down the road as well. This is Brandon McNulty trying to tee up João Almeida to get up and skirmish with those a little bit further up the road. Almeida currently, of course, sitting in sixth place, and having witnessed what Rigoberto Urán did yesterday, he's managed to put himself away from the group of favourites, including Remco Evenepoel, by a decent margin, just over a minute at the moment. McNulty had done a super job of trying to slingshot him up the mountain. And we're on our first climb of the day, and we have 42, yeah, that's right, 42 riders in the break, including many of the favourites picked by our experts. Richard Carapaz is up there, Marc Soler is up there, Marc Pardon is up there. Thibaut Pinot has made the trip. Well, with 48 riders already out of this race, when you take account that there are 42 up the road, I don't know, it almost feels like the peloton, to be honest. This is your virtual standings as it is at the moment, with Rigoberto Urán looking happy and healthy. He's got teammates up front. He's not there himself today, but Hugh Carthy, Mohamed Kudus, Marc Pardon and Julius Van den Berg have made the trip. So it is more than impressive. So what's the response? That is the big question. We'll see how that response materializes. That was the peloton. This is the man who's just pulled himself away from it, João Almeida. And we wait to find who's it going to be from the breakaway, because surely, Sean Kelly, this break has got stage win written all over it.
Well, it looked like that until a moment ago, when we see the team of UAE and wanting to push on, and we can see Almeida just out in front here of the peloton. And this is a day where it gets complicated, because now on this climb afterwards we have, you know, the descent, and we have quite a lot in the valley and pretty lumpy stuff as well, and then we go on to the two final climbs of the day. So it is it's been a real difficult day. We see that huge crash and lots of riders going down heavily, other riders getting caught up behind. Just the speed is on, the race was on to get into the breakaway, and then with this huge breakaway getting away, and now the race is not settled. It's not allowed to settle for the team of the race leader here, and that is the problem, because, you know, with so many riders up the road and Almeida trying to get out. Up to this it was okay, the big breakaway. The best man was Carapaz, a long ways down at 26 plus minutes. But now this is going to be an interesting one to see what will happen from here on, because yeah, the GC men further down are starting to make moves at this early point, still with plus 82 kilometres and more for this man here on our screen.
Only two teams did not make the breakaway, Lotto Soudal and Team DSM. This João Almeida move is something that may well upset the entire equilibrium of those who are up front in the break. 43 riders, I beg your pardon, I am hearing, that are up in the break. So clearly I missed one. Not surprising, because it is just so numerous up there. Let me just briefly tell you, it'll be a big breath, but let me just go through it. Jumbo-Visma have Robert Hessink, Sam Oomen and Mike Turnison. Strong. AG2R Citroën have Nans Peters and Nico Prudhomme. Just one from Astana, Kazakhstan team, but it's Vincenzo Nibali. These are those that did not start today. I'm afraid that Nibali's teammate Battistella, the first to leave the race from Astana, he is out with fever, and I'm afraid that Bruno Amarai with bronchitis. And you already know that Jay Vine, of course, has withdrawn while wearing the polka dot jersey, leading that competition. 2 stage wins to his name. With the crash, I'm afraid he's gone to hospital. So there's your virtual standings as it is at the moment. Almeida there, running in 5th place now, and would like to, quite frankly, move a little bit further forward. That was your King of the Mountains points. We haven't seen many of them in this race, but that was one. And one can only assume that Richard Carapaz will be hunting down a jersey that he now leads in that competition. And there he is with the golden helmet, so he's clearly crested that up front. It looks like he had company as well from Sandro Maurice, but I'm sure he wasn't denied. So Carapaz is comforting, as some would say, is leading that competition. Back to this, we mentioned Vincenzo Nibali, Gino Maeda, we have Yash Sutherland and Zambanini have made the trip for Bahrain victorious. No Fred Wright. Fabro, Igita and Danny van Poppel are up there for Bora Hansgrohe. Could be a phenomenal day for the young Italian Fabro. We have Davide Villela. He's made the trip for Cofidis. They don't mind sending one up the road. They often do the job. We have Carthy, Kudus, Padden, Shaw, Van der Berg. In fact, just about everybody who's not called Duran. Up in the break for EF Education. Fabulous win for a fabulous team yesterday. Thibaut Pinot and Rudy Mollard have made the trip for Francis Dejeux. Thibaut Pinot, many people's pick, including Dan Lloyd. May well be the kiss of death, but we shall wait and see. Richard Carapaz and Theo Gegenhardt up front. So is Jan Bakelants from Intermarché Wanty Gobert. Alessandro De Marchi is up front as well. Number 103 for Israel Premier Tech. And he's got a teammate. That's the one I missed, actually, De Marchi. He has a teammate with him, Omar Goldstein. Oliveira and Verona. Come on, Carlos. Are up front for Movistar. We have Masnada, who is there. It's a long list, this. From Quickstep Alpha Vinyl. We have Lawson Craddock again after yesterday's shenanigans. He's up making use of himself up front, which is great for Team Bike Exchange. Dario Cataldo is there as well. Likewise, Marc Soler, one of the favourites, I think it's fair to say, having taken stage 5. He'll certainly want another dig today and hope to do what Jesus Herrada didn't do yesterday by hanging on for a victory in this one. Soler there with Shao Almeida as his Ivo Oliveira, I beg your pardon, as his teammate, as this man Almeida continues to grind into the gap form. It's a 41 now. Sandro Maurice is there for Alpecin de Koenig. We have Yetzabol. Happy birthday to you, Yetza. With Jose Manuel Diaz and Danny Navarro. Danny Navarro, good man in this kind of terrain. Raul Garcia is there for Equipo Kern Farmer, Ituria, Gotan Martin, Elie Gesbert, Ituria Martin from Euskaltel, Gesbert from Team Arkea Samsic, who has teammates Danny McClay, Osvian and Russo along for the ride. Well, this is a man who did his job and now is backing out, back through the group of favourites, but we'll wait to see what Shao Almeida can do. Marc Soler and Ivo Oliveira up front as well. So Almeida's got a great battle plan here, but it may well, as you say, Sean, be lighting a blue touch paper underneath, I'm afraid, our breakaway. I mean that in a bad way. It could blow them apart if indeed the response from the GC men is not favourable to the break. Anybody's guess?
Well, this is going to be an interesting one. We can see here, you know, the action is on in the peloton because of Almeida getting out of it here, and you know, there's teams getting involved, and yeah, it was the team of Quickstep who were setting that pace. No problems really, considering they were a very big breakaway. Nobody danger in the GC, so it was going to be a day, you know, just keep on working with the team and get it into that final. But now this man is causing a lot of concern here, being out in front.
Well, he was in 6th place, don't forget, behind Miguel Angel Lopez of Team Astana. And so they won't be happy. Here's your man who's dropped back to help him get up front. This could be a terrific exchange between the pair of them. This is Ivo Oliveira, who's dropped back to help out. Get on my wheel, he says, as he comes over the Category 2 test. 2 Category 1s remain, but there is 28 kilometres before we start our next climb, much of which is descending, and they're engaged with that now. Clever stuff, Sean.
Yes, well, it wasn't looking like that in the beginning. I was thinking, yeah, they're in the breakaway, of course, with Soler to try and go for a stage, and you know, now they're playing the game of the GC, which is yeah, it's a long shot here, but yeah, it is going to cause a lot of problems here for the main peloton and for the breakaway as well, because now, as you say, Carlton, this could be the killing of the breakaway. But the peloton has a lot of work to do here, but there's other teams getting involved, and that is the good thing for the red jersey. We always talk about the GC standing in the end of the third week, and that's what we're seeing here. The teams who have men up there and concerned about Almeida going out in front. They're the ones who are setting the pace on the front of the peloton.
Well, it's an extraordinarily busy day. Do you know, I was so full of joy yesterday when Rigoberto Urán took his stage win. I think all neutrals will have absolutely loved that. A veteran, hugely popular rider, well loved within the peloton, a man who appears to have absolutely no enemies. And of course, he's part of a team that everyone hopes will garner enough points to keep them safe in the top draw of cycling. So it was a great result. And then before we come to air today, we get the sad news that Jay Vine is out, and a crash as well, Sean, the worst way to go out, I think. And so many others involved. Carlos Rodriguez from Ineos Grenadiers, Mads Pedersen in the green jersey, Quentin Paget run up yesterday. This race has been brutal.
It has been brutal, and the start this morning, of course, it was just another crazy start. And you know, they were doing 49 kilometres in the first hour. It was just full-on racing, and we see where the crash occurred. You know, a big road, high speed, and when something go wrong, well, then you have a lot of riders down. And yeah, there was a lot of them, you know, really badly cut up. And we see, you know, Quentin Paget there, he had no jersey left on. We see Carlos Rodriguez as well, jersey ripped asunder, and a lot of other riders were tangled in it. But for Jay Vine, this is, you know, a huge disappointment, because you know, he was on the road to taking the mountain classification jersey all the way, and he would not have missed this breakaway. But unfortunately, the crashes happen, and when they happen and you have a jersey in a race, well, it is a huge one and a big disappointment for Vine.
And of course, if you're battling for a jersey, we all know that Primož Roglič is no longer part of proceedings, which is such a shame. Well, it's not over at all, and in fact there's plenty of places up for grabs, as you can see, and that's what João Almeida is reaching out for, and spectacularly so as well. He's managed to find a minute. There has been a response. It was drifting up to about a minute and 20, minute and 25. The peloton have responded, and they are closing down now on the gap. Just under 75 kilometres of what's been a brutal day already. Sadly, Jay Vine has crashed out of the race while wearing the King of the Mountains jersey. We thought a breakaway of 42 would have its fun. Anything but. And we're seeing various moves going on right now. And this is a spectacular one with Theo Gegenhardt thinking, well, if this is going to fall to bits, I'm going to give myself the best chance of making it stick. Time for us to welcome Adam Blythe to the commentary position. Adam, it's kicking off. In some ways great, in other ways not so.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel sorry for Jay Vine there in that big crash at the start. He's done so well throughout this Vuelta. So it's not been nice at all. And it's I'm very sad to see him go. But you are right, Carlton. It is kicking off. You've got Theo Gegenhardt going off the front here. I think within that group there's a lot of people looking around, looking at each other, wanting to do more work than not. So Theo just trying to get ahead of that, trying to form a little group at the front there alongside his compatriots within that breakaway. You can see there's little splits behind people trying to come across. He does have Richard Carapaz in that group, so it's an interesting one for me. Both of them, Theo has slipped right back on the GC now. So I think for him, just focusing on stages, and he's won the Giro before. He's a very capable rider, and today's stage does suit him quite nicely, I'd say. It's just with two of them in there, that two-prong attack, both being similar rider, both similar attributes. They've obviously got a plan. Theo maybe the early doors option, and Richard sit back and wait for the final. But it's going to be interesting, and especially with these two here. I'm surprised as well, Carlton and Sean, that Soler hasn't dropped back yet. They're throwing everything at it here with Almeida, but they've not sent Soler back. Well,
he's known, Sean, Soler, isn't he? Sorry to hobo on your question there, Adam, but he is known as being quite mercurial. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was called back and said he's got a radio problem, Sean.
Well, we've seen it before in the Vuelta.
Exactly.
Will we see it again today if he's called back a bit later, and we'll see all these hand signals going about. But you know, when he's up there as well, you know, he's not going to contribute here. He'll be just, you know, tagging along with the rest of this very big breakaway, and you know, that can cause a little bit of, you know, unorganisation in the breakaway. So he might do that job better than ask him to come back for the moment. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, we can see that the big breakaway, it's starting to, you know, fall apart a bit, because there's a lot of riders just, oh yes, the peloton behind behind. Almeida's coming out, he's coming across. All of that with 71 kilometres to go, and what we have on the menu for the rest of the day. You know, we have these 2 big climbs, and there's a lot of them thinking, well, I'm going to spare as much energy as possible for the moment and see when we get closer to the final, to the finish, what the advantage will be.
Adam, it's our last summit finish in a race that it hasn't been defined by high ground for me. I know we've had some pretty high altitude finishes, not least of course Sierra Nevada, but not lots and lots of them. And it kind of, to me, it looked like a race designed to help the likes of Alaphilippe and Remco Evenepoel. If that was the case, they certainly have. But it's an odd one, isn't it?
It is an odd one. We do have, however, stage 20, Carlton. It's not quite a summit finish, but there is a very hard climb to the top, yeah. And I think they've only got 6 kilometres of flattish road at the top of that last climb, so not quite a summit finish, you are right, but a very challenging climb where everything will be thrown at. But today is a day, you are right, they're going to throw a lot into it, I think, as we can see for what Almeida's doing. We've got Astana on the front chasing, but the climbs today are not the hardest climbs. They're only 5% average gradient. It doesn't kick up in ramps at all. It's the same gradient all the way up pretty much. So for these riders today, it's not just about that big power effort they have to do. Of course, they have to produce the power, but tactics will come into play on these climbs massively. Sitting on the wheels, you'll get a big advantage from. So for the likes of Ayuso, who we see here, I don't know where he is, towards the back of the peloton maybe, he can use the other riders in front of him to draft, to get a little bit of an easy ride up that mountain, attack maybe. And as we said in the breakaway show, if you attack in those on the shallower section gradients, which we have a lot of, it's very easy to create quite a large gap quite quickly, which obviously takes longer to bridge across to because they're going faster, the gradients aren't as steep. So there'll be a lot of tactics within play today, and I think today could be a great place, an opportunity for a lot of the riders on GC and within that front group to either win the stage or get some time back.
We have seen a great variation in the sort of riders who've won. Some people, I mean, we always sort of hope and pray for breakaway wins, but it seems to be the characteristic of the race. Sean, do you think they deliberately designed this race to sort of widen the appeal potentially for and the options of many other riders than perhaps the out-and-out favourites?
Well, they all look for that. You know, they try and get a route and you know, pick a route that is going to make the race interesting and make it more aggressive. And you know, the Vuelta, they have done a great job over the years, and they have been lucky as well, I suppose, end of year and more so this year, the point situation for the teams not getting results, you know, in the races that they had maybe on the programme earlier on. And we know there's a few of them here, like the Tour of France riders that, you know, focused big time, went out because of injury, sickness, whatever, and then come to the Vuelta. And that's been the case for many years. And for that reason, we have got a great race every year. So I think it's a number of things, but the organisation has done a real good job, you know, we did talk about that, and many years ago they shortened the stages a lot. It was more aggressive racing, and you know, this race you have to pick your days where there was you know, a transition day really. There was only, I think, 2 days where that happened. So this has been a fabulous race, and it has been for the past number of years.
It has. It's always a grand finale. Last chance saloon, and Russo here is rolling the dice. Clement got 3 teammates as well behind him, don't forget, in the pack. So this is a good shaking, I guess you might say, of the breakaway tree. Elie Gesbert would be their favoured man later on, but don't discount any of them. And that's the point, Adam. You can't discount anybody, least of all those who are hovering around the top 10 for making a big move. We saw it with Iran, who rocked into the top 10. Is Almeida going to crash into that now? Further up the ranking,
yeah.
I mean. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, he's definitely up there already. This is a big effort. He's got his teammate Oliveira there that's dropped back to him, of course, but they have got around 13 kilometres the next climb. It is mostly downhill. They do get to a little rise shortly, but it's just the effort in between the climbs they have to make. There's not much after the next climb, but we can see Astana's on the front controlling things and bringing that gap down slowly. It's going to be interesting. I think Almeida is only looking to get back up that GC a little bit more, closer to his teammate Ayuso.
Let's speak to Machine Fernandez from Team UAE, shall we? Today, do you think that we might witness some movement in the general classification? Well, today will be tough for sure. First of all, because the first 90 kilometres are flat and there are nearly nothing in terms of difficulty. But then kilometre 25, there will be a difficult steep slope that counts as a climb. It's 3 kilometres long, 4.5% gradients, and before a very tough climb at the bottom of the test, there's about 10 to 14% gradient, so it'll take its toll. The last 3 climbs are demanding, not too tough considering the percentages of all the gradients, but you might lose a lot of time out there. We'll see how today is, whether it is or is not a very important stage. At least I'm hoping that that was the translation, because I've got a lot more to say. Maybe we cut it short, but nonetheless, 66.3 kilometres to go. He's managed to extricate himself from the pack here. And a short while ago, Teo Geoghegan wanted to rough it up. What is the strategy today? I think this, Sean, is too big a group to survive as it is intact up front. I mean, it's enormous. It kind of looks like we're looking at the peloton each time we nip back to it. It can't last, surely. You know, there's a drop back.
Well, it is going to go on all the way, I think, and you know, what the outcome will be, that is the big question here. And you know, the big breakaway, the riders were happy the way they were, you know, going along, and just wait until the point where you feel you have to do something, and that means the riders who are not good in the climbs, as good as some of the breakaway companions, to try and get out a longer way from the finish and get ahead. But this has caused the big problem here. Almeida, he's after really upsetting things, and that's upset the peloton big time, but has also upset the breakaway, because they know now that the race is coming up from behind and they want to get out with a number of riders. And you know, the riders that are here in the breakaway, some are going to be waiting back and they're not going to contribute. And you know, like Ineos Grenadiers, for example, we see Teo Geoghegan, he wanted to get out of that because they're not going to contribute in the breakaway either if Almeida comes across. So it's going to get very tactical here now as we go into this final 65 kilometres.
Luis Sanchez just calling for some assistance. He's back in the peloton, just at the rear of him. To be honest, I thought he would be one of those that might be a feature of the break today.
So did Dan Lloyd, Carlton. He was his pick today, yeah. What a shame for Dan, eh?
Well, he's changed his pick from Luis Leon Sanchez. Was that his pick, you say?
That was his original pick today. In our predictions, he picked him, and what a shame, eh, for Dan, that he's not got anyone in the break. That huge break of 41 riders.
Well, also a shame for Dan is he amended his pick, which we didn't know about, that he had the original pick, and you've just let the cat out of the bag. So
yeah, sorry, Dan.
Mate.
Well, I'm not sorry at all, actually.
You'll have a word to say about that in about 10 kilometres time. We'll be welcoming Dan and Robbie. Yeah. Dan McClay's dropped off the back, but Gisbert is still playing with the field at the moment. Or even Clément Rousseau. He's out the front. Teo Geoghegan decided to probe and pressure, and just to make sure to try and draw out a response. And in the end, Rousseau went. He's got a margin of 45 seconds. Teo Geoghegan went back into the pack. Meanwhile, Dan McClay, also of Team Arkea Samsic, just as Rousseau, dropped off the back. He's now riding or trying to stay on the coattails of Ivo Oliveira or João Almeida. Not quite sure why he would be doing that, because quite frankly, he just needs to... I think he's done his job today. Derek Italo just at the back for Trek here, sitting on the back wheel of number 8. That's Mike Turnerson. I was surprised not to see Rowan Dennis up here, but I'm not sure, but I think he might have been involved in the crash that we had a bit earlier on. Did you see that, Adam?
I didn't see if he came down or not, but I spoke to Rowan this morning about the fireworks. I asked him if it was actually him that set them off. He confirmed it wasn't, but he said today is a good day, but tomorrow is better for me, he said. So he's obviously thinking about controlling that.
Fireworks? What do you mean? Literally to keep people awake? I've known that before.
Yes, so Rowan obviously didn't do it, but in his hotel last night, just around the corner, there was a lot of fireworks going off at 1:30 a.m, which kept them all awake. And I asked Rowan, was it you that actually was setting off the fireworks or not? But no, it was. I was just having a little joke with him. But yeah, I wasn't surprised after that conversation, but on paper today, after the loss of Primus was in that team, we've seen 3 of them in there already, but when 3 of them go up the road, it's not always easy, if you've missed it, to jump across to it when you've already got 3 teammates in. So plenty of opportunities for Rowan left.
I think so. I'd love to see it as well. And don't be surprised, he climbs extraordinarily well. I've seen him in support of teammates with the various incarnations of the teams that he's been with. He's a spectacular rider. Loved watching him in Romandy. Thought he should have won the race actually this year, and could have won many more, Rowan Dennis, had he been given opportunity. Opportunity knocks for everybody to make some movement, I think, within the top 10. Chow Almeida would be virtually 6th. He's now swapped that position. Timo Ahrensman is in 7th place as it stands. It was lovely as well, Adam, just to get your thoughts on the victory of Rigoberto Urán. It cheered everyone. It was, I was in a very ebullient mood, but put to one side because of the crash of Vine. But Rigo, so popular. Yeah,
we were chatting about him this morning and just how much of a legend he is within this sport, really. And we said that, you know, within that peloton today, when someone wins a stage, that normally a lot of riders come up to you, pat me on your back and say well done. You can almost guarantee that every single one of the peloton came up to him and said well done. He's such a popular figure within the peloton, but also out it as well.
This is not what you want to see, to be honest. But Carlos Rodriguez carrying more than a few burgers there. Oh, my life, bless him. He's involved in a terrible crash earlier on today, and so brave of him to ride on. Has to, of course, because he's so well placed, 4th in the overall standings. But there is a bit of a shake-up going on for those of you who just joined us, not least that Jay Vine has crashed out wearing the pink, the polka dot jersey, I'm afraid. But also that Chow Almeida has made a big move to try and bridge to a breakaway of now 39 riders. A couple have dropped back due to the pace that's being set out front. It was 42 riders, but Chow Almeida is trying to bridge from the peloton to them, and he holds a margin, as you can see, of around about 52 seconds, that kind of margin. And that's because there's been a response, and it could be the killing of our breakaway that looked absolutely certain to go all the way. It does not look or appear to be that certain anymore. And that's because we've got some climbs to come. And in fact, we will be starting the first run up the Alto de Piornal. We take it twice, but from different directions. But it's the same sort of cone at the top. So it kind of feels pretty similar when you actually get to the last phase of it. But it's the opening ramps of the 2 occasions that differ. First time by, we'll be climbing with 54 kilometres to go. So we'll be at the foot of the climb, as you can see, in 8 kilometres time, thereabouts. Well, it's a quality band of brothers that we have up the road, and one that really could define the day, or was expected to, in terms of how the result would pan out. Remco Evenepoel is having a magic carpet ride at the moment, because so much is likely to change behind him. Should Chow Almeida bridge over and find some time, the sort of time that Rigoberto Urán found yesterday would be a luxury. It's other teams that are marking this out, Sean, and so as a result, pressure's off Evenepoel at the moment.
Yes, it is, and it's a good job that the other teams are concerned about what's happening out front. And with Almeida out there, we can see Astana are the ones who are setting a real strong pace here in the peloton, what's left of the peloton, because we have a huge break out in front, of course. But
is that the peloton, or is it the break, Sean?
he needs that help, and unfortunately for a lot of the riders in the breakaway, they're going to be saying, "Oh my God, we're still 60+ kilometres from the finish, with the most important, the most difficult part of the stage to come, and the race is on from behind." Nibali, of course, being out there, he's going to be disappointed with the situation. But yeah, you have no control. Teams have tactics, and they try these things. And this is a one from a long ways out from the team of Almeida and the UAE Team Emirates.
It's a good question you asked, actually, Adam, because 48 riders out, getting on for a third of the peloton, 39 riders up the road, and the peloton chasing with the odd rider, of course, elsewhere on the road. It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. For us to work out which is the breakaway and the peloton, it is a nightmare. I'm not sure which we're looking at right now. That's definitely the breakaway, which we're seeing up in front. Or is it? Or is that the peloton? No, it's the peloton. There we go, exactly. Can't tell. But I was just chatting to Sean as we were listening to one of the interviews there, that this Almeida attack is very, very interesting. We chatted about it briefly yesterday, along with the what the UAE tactic is. It's almost like Almeida's been given a free hand to ride how he wants to ride, let's say. He can attack, which he is doing, going on the attack, but if he does take more and more time out of it and he jumps up a couple of minutes, a minute and a half, it's going to be him and Ayuso fighting for that third spot on the podium, and then we'll really see what the plan is. Who do they want to not win more, but who's more the priority in that team? Because you can imagine that Ayuso would be the priority in a minute in the situation that he's in. They're still giving Almeida that free hand, and I guess it's the strength in numbers game. But if he does bring back more time, what will change within that department then? What's going to change within that team? What are the decisions going to be made? Who's going to be the leader?
It's fascinating. We always say, Sean, that this is the Grand Tour where you make amends for a season. It's last chance saloon for many, or indeed a celebration. Well, at the moment, there are a lot of teams celebrating the possibilities that have been thrown up by this race, and I don't know how this one's going to pan out today, especially now.
No, it's very difficult to read the race, what's going to happen here, but yeah, it's not a good situation, not the situation the breakaway riders were thinking of when they got out in front, and they got up to that 9 minutes. At 100 kilometres to go, they had a 9-minute advantage, and then all things kicks off from behind. So there's a lot of riders here that are going to be concerned now about how they will fare out as we get into the final of this one. And yeah, it's for some it's an interesting one. For others, it's a bit of a disappointing day at the moment. But it's early to see yet what the outcome will be until we get closer to this finish.
Saw Mark Soler just hanging off the back there, almost like he's been screamed at to drop back. We'll see. Meanwhile, a reminder that if you want cloudier skies, there is the Tour of Britain. Looks like the roads are dry. How long that will last is anybody's guess, but it is live right now with about 50 kilometres of the day remaining, with a break out front, just at a minute and 53. And here they are. It's a lot less numerous, and it looks like they're just taking bits out of each other right now. So tune in and enjoy that if you'd like to visit the Tour of Britain. There are other races going on at the moment. We are extraordinarily lucky. The Kratizit Challenge by La Vuelta. You can drop into stage 2 at 5:20 UK time, 18:20 CET. They have completed the team time trial yesterday. These are pictures of that, and how nice to see Eleanor Baxter. There we are. Is she old enough? I think she might be.
She is.
for that alcohol. It was probably fruit juice, knowing Magnus. Yes, Eleanor and Zoe, of course, amazing stars, Adam, and great to see them with a platform supported by La Vuelta.
It is. It's fantastic to see the race on. It's fantastic to see another, not necessarily a Grand Tour, but a mini Grand Tour for those ladies. And Annemiek van Vleuten in the hot seat to get the treble, Giro Tour and Vuelta. I was just looking at his breakaway then and just thinking of the situation they're in. The peloton is getting closer, Almeida's getting closer. Once we get onto this next climb, and this is one of the joys with having teammates, as EF have 5 people in that bay. Julius Vandenberg on the front now will be able to drive the tempo within this, knowing that he isn't going to be anywhere on the climb, so he'll push it along for his leaders in there, Padun, Carthy, Kudus as well, slightly maybe. But that is one of the joys within it. But if this does get brought back on the climbs, ultimately for the likes of Carthy, for the likes of Carapaz, as long as they get onto that bottom climb with, say, a minute and a half, they can afford to ride a little bit easier on the climbs, which will ultimately save them a little bit of energy. They don't have to keep up with the GC guys. So if the GC guys get closer, as we saw the other day with Carapaz, he's still got a little bit in reserve almost, and he's able to push on. He's playing with fire a little bit, letting them get closer and trying to hold them off. But it's not always a bad thing to be in this situation if you are a very talented and very good climber, which that break has got quite a lot of them in it.
Certainly has. Sean, a great boost for EF Education Easy Post yesterday in terms of their hunt for points at the end of the season, which we're all aware of how critical that can be in staying in the top draw, the top division of cycling. They want to stay safe, and they played a big card today by putting everyone except Duran up the road.
Yes, they made a really good move to get all that riders in the breakaway, and you know, such a big breakaway as well. It was, yeah, the perfect situation until this race kicked off behind, and we can see now the situation at the moment. It's going to be a difficult one in the end, but we have a lot of really good climbers up there. But yeah, if they really keep on pushing from behind in the peloton and the chasing group with Almeida, this could come down a lot more.
Just passing by the Monastero. This is on the top of a little peak, by the way. So I have a little peek. Well, you could if the doors were open, but as you know, monks do not like cycling shoes clicking around their basilicas. So no, it looks pretty closed to me. Despite all the cars there, I don't know where they're all off to. Yes, we have some rises and falls to deal with today, and as we pass by that rather beautiful, looked like a seminary apart from anything else. This is a little pickup that we have had to get to a plateau. You can see we're on it now. We'll take a dip down, not that short a dip, but yes, there's a series of steps that will take us down to the foot of our climb today, and that bizarrely is almost where the intermediate sprint sits, Adam. Not that Mads Pedersen will be involved. He was in the crash earlier on today. He's not out front, but a strange place to put the intermediate sprint, actually integral to the climb.
Yes, not the most ideal place, but from what we've seen so far, anything can happen in these competitions. We saw, sadly, Jay Vine crashing out today, so he's no longer going to be in the KOM jersey. Fred Wright is the second person in that competition, which is 149 points as opposed to Pedersen's 349. But there's one man in the breakaway with 133 points, and that's Marc Soler, who is in the front group. So maybe he'll just try and roll across that line first, just in case.
Weather is climbing. There's a lot of descending as well. Famously, paratroopers shout Geronimo when they jump out the back of the plane. I don't know why. And that Monastero was the Monastero de San Jeronimo de Yuste. Work it out. I have no idea. These guys, well, they're asking everyone else to try and unpick their strategy, and it's been a great one so far. 3 minutes and 11 they've closed down, but look at what's happened to the peloton. They've trimmed that gap as well. I think probably, what, 2, possibly 3 minutes have been shed from the advantage of our breakaway, all because João Almeida wants to go over. And he has a man with him at the moment in Ivo Oliveira. Hovering at the back is their teammate Marc Soler at the back of the peloton. Sorry, the back of the breakaway. It's the same size almost as the peloton. So the chase is engaged. It looks like it might well be the killing off of our break, but what a fascinating start to the day, notwithstanding the bumps and bruises that we've had, and of course Jay Vine exiting the race. In a short while we'll be hearing from Dan Lloyd and Robbie McEwen, who join proceedings. Sean's heading off for a little bit of lunch. I'll be doing pretty much the same myself. We're just about to be joined by a wider Eurosport, Discovery and GCN family. Well, you're already here, of course, if you're watching on GCN Plus. Very wise decision indeed. There's the red jersey. It's Movistar that's doing the chasing at the moment. They do have Oliveira and Verona up front. That's Nelson Oliveira, not Ivo, who's dropped back for João Almeida. It's a beautiful part of the world, and it's a great day to reach for the bike as well. 25 to 28 Celsius, westerly wind, not too much of a tempest blowing up, about 10 kilometers per hour only. In fact, the cordon's not being troubled too much. The peloton is troubled by a move from João Almeida to make inroads into the overall standings, and that's not to the liking of a number of teams, not least Movistar and, of course, Astana, who find themselves starting the day with Mas, of course, in second place. Astana with Miguel Angel Lopez in fifth place. And they don't want João Almeida, who's running in sixth, bridging over to a massive breakaway, which now numbers 40 incidentally. It was 43 at its maximum. João Almeida is being towed over by Ivo Oliveira, and he stands at 3 minutes and 15. A big response from the peloton, and that margin has now been cut to our breakaway. And it looks like this may well be the killing off it. Let's wait and see. Rolling terrain at the moment, about to pick up and take on our climb.
Well, this is going to be interesting, Colin. Sorry to butt in there, but with Almeida, that gap is coming down. It's not coming down quickly, but it's getting closer and closer and closer. When they get to the top of that climb, they have a 19-kilometre descent, a little bit of flat after before they start the next climb. Almeida is not known for his descending that well.
It might rain as well.
It might rain. It's quite a twisted descent, so I'd say for him to get to the top of that climb, to be, you know, in with a shout of still taking time going into the bottom of the descent, he probably needs a minute and a half at the top. I think if it goes below a minute, he'll be within 20 seconds at the bottom of that descent for the next climb. So he's going to have to leave his teammate behind soon, I feel, on this next climb, and try and put some distance into that peloton if he's in with a chance of trying to keep that gap open before the last climb starts.
As you can see, a cloud has been laid across proceedings here, so entering the dark zone. Got to be Dan Lloyd.
Good afternoon, Carlton.
Hello. So, very, very appropriate dark sort of dead air of 5 seconds there.
Well, there is a very good reason for that. One of the positions within the booth isn't working today, and it's the one that I normally use. So I switched that one on first, and then realised that I needed to switch the other one on. So I'm here now.
Good. I will not do any Darth Vader sounds. You've got some busy action going on at the moment. See you soon.
Cheers, Carlton. Thank you very much to Sean as well. They'll be back on the lead-in to the final climb of the day, which is, of course, a summit finish. But we have an intriguing day on our hands here at La Vuelta a España. That man could be key. Marc Soler, part of this early 40-plus man group. And actually, I think this is the first time I can ever remember a breakaway being bigger than what is currently left of the main peloton behind when we look down. And it seemed like there was only 30 or so riders left in the group of Remco Evenepoel. And this is the intriguing part. How far will João Almeida go into this stage, given the chase that we're seeing behind him? This is Ivo Oliveira doing a sterling job for one of his team leaders in this race. And Robbie McEwen, we've been talking about the lack of cohesion amongst UAE Team Emirates. Seems like 3 of the riders have been doing their own race. It's been great to watch them today, hasn't it?
It's been incredibly entertaining to watch them, albeit not textbook professional racing. But it's given us plenty to talk about, and it's made for some action-packed moments in stages. With Soler, I've lost count of how many breaks he's been a part of. He's been quite incredible in this Vuelta, including his stage win. But the lack of cohesion amongst them, it begs so many questions about what is actually going on there. Who's leading the team? Is there a plan when they sit down in the bus before the stage? Or they just come in and give that sort of nod that's not even really a hello, and then just get out and go and race?
I think they might have a bus each. But actually, fair play to them today, because this is exactly the type of racing that we really want to see. There'll be a few people in this group who will not be happy to hear of the situation behind them, because although it's such a large group, the best placed on the general classification was Richard Carapaz at the start of the day, and he was only 26 minutes down, or 26 minutes down, I should say. So no threat to Remco Evenepoel, no threat really to anybody inside the top 10 of this race. But since Almeida's gone on the attack, it sparks the group of Evenepoel into action. So we have Movistar and Astana both thinking that he is a threat to their positions on the general classification. And that has brought the gap down. 4 minutes and 8 seconds from this group being led by Robert Gesink, as they start the first of the first category climbs today. Remind us what the gradients are on this one, Adam.
This one is 5% average, 13.6 kilometres in length.
Not the steepest, but quite long. Let's hear from Remco Evenepoel.
Remco, one of the last tests in the mountains in this Vuelta a España. How are the legs? How is the condition for this day?
I hope good. It's going to be a special race. I think the hardest climb is like around 90 km to go. Then the final climb is, a longer one, but not really steep. So. Yeah, I expect a big fight again for the breakaway, and maybe / hopefully a bit of an easier final.
What's in your mind these days? I mean, how do you live being the leader of the first Grand Tour, well, second if we think in the Giro, and having this pressure, defending the jersey?
I just try to enjoy it as much as possible. I think that's the most important. It's my 12th day now as a leader, so that's quite a long period. So we are really close to the last day, so I just hope to take it home to wear the jersey for 3 more days. That would be, I think then it's perfect.
What do you expect from the rivals today?
Like I said, there's a pretty tough and tricky climb, around 90 km to go, so I expect the race will be quite open from there on, and then I expect a long final, but like I said, the final climb is not super hard. It's more about slipstream also, so I think it's going to be a bit of a more open final, but I expect that we can go to the finish line with a small group, yeah.
Remco Evenepoel there, our race leader, and as he pointed out, he's now been leading this race for 12 days. So we had the first 6, I think it was, where the leader's red jersey swapped hands every single day. Then it landed on Remco Evenepoel's shoulders, and that's been that ever since then. Got an attack up the road there, and more going on behind. Great job there from the UAE Team Emirates rider, Ivo Oliveira, working for his teammate and compatriot of Portugal, João Almeida. When will we see Marc Soler dropping back, Robbie?
Maybe next year when he's in a different team with different teammates. So I'm not going to make any predictions.
He can't be changing teams yet.
Who knows? It depends if he follows instructions or not, I suppose. I think this is the moment to do it, to be honest. I was just looking at that gap for Almeida to the peloton, or what's left of it with the red jersey. It was out to a minute, back to 40 seconds. Then it looked like it was back out to a minute. Now it seems to have stabilised. Means that motorbikes with the GPS equipment moving around a little bit, I suppose. But now it's telling us 50 seconds. This would be the right moment for Marc Soler to drop back to his teammate and give him what assistance he can in terms of pacing, while Hugh Carthy is going long range.
But do you think it is? Because he could stay within that peloton until the last climb, and Almeida could be brought back, and then Soler still has a chance for the stage win.
Hugh Carthy on the attack then, and I'd imagine everybody in this front group is well aware that the time gap to the main peloton is not as big as they would like it to be. So if they want to stand a chance of winning this stage, they can't afford to leave it too long before they start to make their move. So Hugh Carthy looking to do the double for EF Education Easy Post. Adam just been talking about what Marc Soler should do as a teammate of Almeida, who's currently, as you can see from the graphic, on his own at 3 minutes to Hugh Carthy and about 53 seconds in front of this main peloton. I think they've got to do it now, personally, because otherwise, especially on this type of gradient, Almeida's going to be caught by the main peloton behind, having made a very big effort on his own.
Yeah, it's got to be an all or nothing from that team, I would say. And at the moment, I think it is the right moment to do it, because if it's going to have some impact on the general classification, see Almeida moving up and maybe leapfrogging his own teammate if he gets enough time, he's going to need to have Soler with him over the top and down this descent, which has another little hill in it midway down, then a little piece of valley before the final climb. I think waiting till the last climb is too late. I think the impact that Soler can have is to be between the top of this climb or on the way up towards the top and then down the other side to the foot of the final climb. And as Almeida decides to keep up this effort, it's going to raise the intensity in the peloton, and 3 minutes will not be enough for this group, for one of this group, to win the stage. So maybe Soler should just say, okay, we're going to go all in on GC. I've had plenty of chances, and drop back, but I'd like to be a fly on the wall in the car.
Yeah, I just think with it, along with the way that he's been riding, sort of almost doing his own thing to an extent. We've never really seen him with that team support. We've seen it around Ayuso a little bit more than we have Almeida. So maybe the agreement was within the team today, you go for it, we'll send guys in the break, we'll send so-and-so back. But if not, it's just one of those no-go situations. I think this is one of the problems if they've got 2 guys in the top 5, well, 6. Who are they going to risk to send back to really help one guy, which then the other guy who's placed better, which is Ayuso, if he has no one left then to help him all around him, and they've both gone all in, the whole team for Almeida, they're just going to be in a bit of a pickle of a situation where, for me, they should be looking after Ayuso. Almeida, yes, let him do what he has to do, but we're not going to sacrifice the team or maybe a stage win to help someone where we've got someone better placed already.
I don't care if it's the right or the wrong thing to do. I'm loving watching it. Presumably Marc Soler is just around the corner waiting to pace this man up the climb, because his gap is remaining steady but it's not going upwards, and we've got more attacks from the front group. I'm always struggling to see whether it's the front group or the main peloton because they're such a similar size today. But Theo Gegenhardt of Ineos Grenadiers, the latest man to make a move from this breakaway. We've got Hugh Carthy on his own up front. We've got a group behind with Sergio Higuita of Bora Hansgrohe and Robert Hesse. You can see them just in the distance. And a man who's finally managed to make his way into a breakaway, Thibaut Pinot. Kept looking at the stage that finished with breakaway wins and thought, why on earth did Pinot not manage to get himself into it? Especially, Robbie, when we saw the legs that he had yesterday, where I don't know why he did this, but he kept up with most of the GC favourites right towards the top of the climb. I think probably just for his own morale and as an affirmation that his legs are really good.
I think you're right. And he said after the stage, my legs were really good today. And I think Thibaut Pinot is a man who wears his heart on his sleeve, but also wears his form on his sleeve. If he's good, he can't hide it. He's not a man to sit back when he feels great. So he just went for it and is assuming that he'll feel just as good today. It is quite surprising that he's missed so many breaks, but sometimes them's the breaks or not.
It's something we were talking about on the breakaway yesterday, about how hard it can be to get yourself into the move that ends up going up the road each day, which makes what Fred Wright's been doing absolutely remarkable, because I would imagine that yesterday he didn't even really want to be in the breakaway, but he's that good at getting in them. He ended up the road anyway.
He said he was going to relax and take it easy.
You see he's tapering down for the World Championships. I guess that has begun today. So a reminder of how things stood at the start of the day in terms of the general classification then. Of course, Remco Evenepoel has been leading that for 12 days now. Behind him, at 2 minutes and 1 second, Enric Mas. So he won't be letting him go anywhere if he can possibly keep him there. Juan Ayuso in third place, with the absence now of Primož Roglic at 4:51, so 2 minutes and 50 between those two Spaniards. Carlos Rodriguez started the day in fourth, and he is still in the group of favourites, but he is incredibly cut up. If you've only just joined our coverage, before we got any live coverage from the host broadcasters, we saw footage from a mobile phone of a really nasty crash at the start of today's stage. One of the riders involved was Carlos Rodriguez of Ineos Grenadiers. Nothing broken, thankfully. He's on his bike, but he's lost an awful lot of skin in that crash, so we'll see how that affects him later on. The other big casualty of that crash was Jay Vine. Awful to see the pictures of him on the ground and staying on the ground. We've not got any updates from the team Alpecin-Deceuninck as to exactly what his injuries are, but we could see from a couple of the photos that were taken a nasty gash to his left wrist, which looked very painful indeed. So the man who's won 2 stages and who had a comfortable lead in the King of the Mountains competition, sadly, is no longer a part of this race. So we'll focus on that gap between Almeida and the main peloton of Remco Evenepoel. Remaining fairly constant at the moment, 47 seconds the gap from Almeida back to that group. I'm sure he would desperately love the help of Marc Soler. I'd love to know what the team tactics are right now. 8 kilometres from the top for the head of the race, which I believe, as I've seen him being caught, is Hugh Carthy. Going back to yesterday's win, Adam, of Rigoberto Urán. Again, we spoke about this earlier, but it only takes a win like that to set the ball rolling for a team like EF.
Yeah, well, it definitely does. And I think with Rigoberto, they'll have celebrated that yesterday. Everyone will be on high morale. And I think it's his last part within the race where we see another attack come from within that group there. But I think the vibe that he gives off and puts into the whole team, the mechanics, the Soigneurs, the riders, everyone, gives us that boost of confidence. And where we are in the race quite late on, this will definitely suit Hugh. He's a very solid rider. We've always seen him perform well later in a race. But I think it's probably just that extra bit that he needed, extra bit of confidence to say, look, we've got nothing to lose, let's go for it.
The other interesting dynamic in this group on our screen right now are the riders within it with GC riders behind. So I think it was Carlos Verona there at Movistar who tried to go on the attack, but immediately onto his wheel was the only representative of Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl, who I believe is Fausto Masnada in that breakaway today. I'm just going to double check that because I don't originally.
It is.
It is Fausto Masnada.
Yep.
Yeah, Robbie, he won't be letting anyone from Movistar go up the road without him, because they can be satellite riders later on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the tactic's going to be, because we've seen on a couple of occasions that Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl have sent riders up in the break. We had Louis Vavaca and Fausto Masnada up in the break a few days ago. I think it was the stage to Sierra Nevada. And then it was all going to plan, and Vavaca ended up doing an incredible job for Remco Evenepoel, but Masnada fell off as they were sort of coming close to joining up those groups. And he never got to do the job that was planned for him by being in the break, because he dumped it in a right-hand corner and never saw the front of the race again. So today he can be a really important guy for Evenepoel, as we now see Richard Carapaz going on the attack again, and he's just seems to be sailing across towards the front.
Yeah, they've got Robert Gessing there in the middle as well, and I believe that's Gisbert, Elie Gisbert with him as well.
Likely, yes. I'd imagine that is Gisbert that's with them. Although actually I haven't marked him down on my sheet as being part of the breakaway, so it might be Clément Rousseau. But either way, have I not marked it down correctly?
It's Gilbert.
Oh, this is the first time Dan's got a PowerPoint wrong.
Yes. I'm in detention later. So it's quite a bit of time for Carapaz to make up. You can see that he's at 18 seconds, but this is the front group on your screen right now. Sergio Higuita, the Colombian national champion, who we've definitely have not seen the best of so far in this race. With him, Hugh Carthy and Thibaut Pinot. Behind him, Gisbert, along with Robert Gessing, and then quickly getting up to their wheel is Richard Carapaz of Ineos Grenadiers.
This is a very good example. Sorry, Robbie, this is a very good example of this climb and the next climb to come. The benefit you get from sitting on the wheels, but also the gaps. Carapaz is at 20 seconds, but the distance that is in terms of actual meters is a lot more than what it would be on a steep climb. So if you miss the group in front, if you've missed an attack in the final, you can't wait too long, because the more that gap grows, the distance on these climbs are much longer and take longer to close down. So tactics are going to be entertaining in this.
6.3 kilometres to the top of the Alto del Piornal. The first of two ascents of the same climb, but from the opposite side. But they are very, very similar in terms of both length and in gradient. And as Adam was pointing out just a few moments ago, the type of gradients that we have today make slipstreaming a much bigger deal than it would be on steeper gradients. And as such, that's why we've got such a big portion of our breakaway riders still locked together. A few riders, should I say, have managed to clip off the front, but behind we must have at least 30 riders, I think, of the original 43-man move still together.
This is another thing to get to the on. I know we talked about Almeida, but Almeida we talked about maybe Soler dropping back. I think probably Almeida would probably drop Soler on this climb, wouldn't stay with him the whole way up the top. But at the same time, we have to remember that Almeida's, as I said to Sean and Carlton earlier, is not the best descender. So it's maybe that Soler is maybe worried about going back and then just almost waiting for him on the downhill when he's putting a lot of work on the uphill, if that makes sense. Silence means it does not make sense.
I think I'm back now. I think I had a little technical glitch there. What I was just seeing a few moments ago was we were talking about being able to slipstream on the climb. Remco Evenepoel getting a good slipstream and from another team. It's now Astana who've taken over. So we've talked a few times about how riders on the GC will start to protect their own patch. They're protecting their own position on the general classification. And Almeida started the day around 50 seconds behind Miguel Angel Lopez on general classification. So it's now Astana riding to limit the lead of João Almeida. So the work being done for the others who would also like to see Almeida brought back.
I guess so. Sorry, Dan. I guess so. When you look at the situation, if Mas really wanted to take it to Remco, they'd probably try to set a hard pace on these climbs to really stretch them out a little bit. So even for Movistar, they're still probably clapping their hands, as are Quick-Step, but for both very different reasons.
Making a decent job of this, though, Joao Almeida. We saw the graphic a few moments ago that he was holding on to a 1 minute advantage over the group that's chasing him behind, being led, as Roy said, by Espana. I think they have been on the front for a fair amount of time, along with Team Movistar. Just about to catch Jascha Sütterlin, the German rider for Bahrain Victorious. That team's also got Gino Maida up front and Eduardo Zambanini, although I know Maida was particularly disappointed with yesterday's performance.
Looks like Soler's sitting up. He is at 1 minute behind the first riders on the road, but he's 30 seconds behind the large group. So it looks like Soler has had the call, I'm not sure, or made the call, but I think had the call that he should sit up and wait for Joao Almeida. Otherwise, he's not going to get distanced by a group like that on a climb like this.
Strange to make that call at this point, but I guess what they might have been thinking was that Soler, given all that he's put into this race already, might not have had the legs to really press on the entire way up this 13.5-kilometre climb. So they pulled him back with around about 6 kilometres to go, be able to pace up that 6 kilometres, down the other side, all being well, and into the foot of the final climb of the day. Well, we say that Astana have been riding on the front. They haven't got many riders left to ride on the front. It looks to me like Miguel Angel Lopez is the rider in second wheel. So only one rider, Adam, left from Astana, I think, to do the work behind Almeida.
Yeah, it looks to be so at the minute. You've got one, obviously, Movistar. I think that's 2 riders from Astana they're chasing.
Yeah, I think the second one is Lopez.
Oh, is it? OK, right.
I think so.
If it is, then yeah, they are short of numbers this early on into a chase. But was it that group that you saw Soler drop back from, Robbie, or not?
He's dropped back off the breakaway.
Oh, wow, OK. Yeah, 1 minute back now, so only 2 minutes 14. Yeah. It's an interesting scenario, isn't it, as we've talked about before, in terms of why do it now, this late on into a climb? There's only so much distance to travel. A downhill is not going to be able to help him that much. There's a little 5k section before the bottom of the last climb, but it's so late on, as we discussed, isn't it? Is it worth the wait now for him to ride 2k towards the top of the climb, for him 3k maybe before he gets there?
I don't think it's the uphill section that's going to make a massive difference to Almeida, but certainly on the way down, it'll let him freewheel a lot, and wherever there can be pedalling done, he can save his legs and be in the wheel of Soler. And then that section you just mentioned, that 5 or 6k section to the foot of the final climb is where he can save him a lot of energy and really empty the tanks. And I think it's the right call for Soler based on the way he's evolved throughout this Vuelta. He won a stage back on, was it stage 5 or 8 to back in Bilbao, stage 5. But as time went on, he finished second to Carapaz on stage 12. But each time he's been in the break after that, he's been sort of further and further from winning the stage. He looks like he's just getting depleted as the days go on, because being in the break every single time like he has, it really takes it out of you. So they've probably said, listen, based on what's happened the last few times, you're probably not going to win today. Let's go for another high GC placing. You're going to wait for Almeida.
Understandable, really, given that Marc Soler completed most of the Tour de France this year. Not everybody can be like Mads Pedersen, who did exactly the same thing, completed it, of course, won a stage as well, and continued to be absolutely at the top of his game. It really has been quite incredible to watch. As is today's stage, I've got to say. There's so much going on, it's hard to know which part to focus on, but we'll return back to the front. This is a second group on the road, and Richard Carapaz is absolutely determined that he's going to catch that front group before we get to the top of this climb. And you can see why. It's an awful long descent. We do have that short, flat road before we start the final climb to the finish. He'll want to make contact, Adam, because otherwise that gap could expand down the descent.
Yeah, it definitely will, and that's something we picked up on earlier in terms of the climb and how it's ridden. You can see the 2 riders here. Gessinking is there, just sat behind Richard Carapaz. On these gradients, they just needed that wheel to sit on. They were dropped from the original 3 at the front, but because of the gradient, because it's a little bit easier sitting on the wheel, Carapaz is having to do all that dirty work against 3 riders up against the front who look like they're sharing that work, so they can get a little bit of rest on the wheel, come back to the front, do their effort. But Carapaz has definitely got the hardest job now, chasing those 3 down. And let's face it, those 3 in front do not want Richard Carapaz coming across to them.
Well, you've got to take your hat off to EF Education Easy Post today. We said they'd be buoyed by the win of Rigoberto around 24 hours ago. But they started the day with 7 riders left in this race. The only one absent, Esteban Chavez, pulled out a couple of days ago. Of the 7 left in the race, 5 got themselves in the breakaway. Hugh Carthy, who's the rider at the front of this race in the group of 3. Moai Kudus, as well as Mark Pardun, James Shaw, and Julius Vandenberg did a brilliant job to keep the gap as high as he possibly could on the lead into this first of the 2 first category climbs that they will face today. There's Marc Soler, just in front.
I have to say, I love this kind of racing, especially from Almeida. With 2 riders in the top 6, 1 in 3rd place at the minute, I'm still loving that they're giving him the freedom to do this, even though I am questioning it a lot. It is bringing us brilliant racing.
Well, I think it puts Ayuso into a half-decent position behind. With any luck, he'll still have Jan Palance there for company in case anything goes wrong there. But if we start looking at the time gaps, this morning, Lopez at 5:33. Almeida at 6:51, so 1 minute and 18 seconds the difference between the 2 of them. The last time gap graphic that we had suggested that Almeida was around about a minute still in front of that group containing Lopez. Just in front of Lopez on GC by 13 seconds is Carlos Rodriguez. So if you want to launch yourself up the GC leaderboard, you're not going to take that amount of time by attacking on the final climb towards the finish. So they had to kind of try something. I'm just glad that they weren't happy with the positions that they were already in. So brilliant racing today. There's the prospect of a Pinot stage win. There's a prospect of a shuffle on the general classification, albeit perhaps not in the first couple of places. So it looks like these 2 groups of 3 at the head of the race on today's stage 18 of La Vuelta a España will come together before we get to the top of this climb. It peaks with 40.8 kilometres of the stage remaining. We've got a descent of 2 parts with one of those annoying kickers halfway down the descent, which doesn't look like much on the profile, but I'm sure will really sting the legs when these riders get to it in a few moments' time. But first up, we'll have the King of the Mountains points and the 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds that are located there. And you would imagine that Richard Carapaz, who is now the leader of the King of the Mountains competition, with Jay Vine having crashed out before our live coverage today, will want to not only make contact with this group at the front, Robbie, but pick up maximum points at the top.
That's right. I mean, the mountain jersey, unfortunately, is going to change hands today. Carapaz is the main beneficiary, because it looked like Jay Vine really had control of that competition, and it's just a massive blow to the Australian. But you know, that is racing, as they say. And just talking about that kicker you mentioned halfway down the descent, one of those really annoying ones, 1.5 kilometres at an average of 6%.
Oh.
Ow.
One of my pet hates as a cyclist, a descent with a climb in the middle.
Yeah.
Great to see Robert Hessink at the front as well. Obviously, he would rather be doing the job still that he has been doing for all of this race and many races before it, and that is working for Primož Roglic. But we said yesterday about how Jumbo-Visma would have to reset their game plan, reset their minds, because there's still stages to be won here at La Vuelta. It would be so fitting, I think, to see Robert Hessink, along with the red jersey that he wore for one day in the Netherlands after the team time trial, managed to pick up a stage win. The odds, I guess, are stacked against him, Adam, when you look at the composition of this front group, but he has had the advantage that since Carapaz joined them, he's not had to do any work.
And I don't think he'll have to up the next climb either. I think, you know, the way that he looked, he's managed to get back to these 3, but with the help of Carapaz there, setting that tempo, being able to sit in the wind. The next climb is similar to this one as well, not too steep, similar gradient. So if he can just sit back and try and save as much as he can, it's amazing how much he might be able to save, sat on that wheel and get close to the finish. But it is all about how much he will have left, because as we spoke about, attacking on these gradients can be very difficult and quite easy to follow. And if you're on the front, you obviously don't want to do too much work. You don't want to respond to too many attacks, which is not really up for him to do, Geesink, in the situation he's in right now, I'd say. So if he can hang on, he's in with as good a shout as any, I'd say.
Well, it's not just Soler that's dropped back to help Almeida, it's most of the team cars in the race as well. Got a bit more draft on this final part of the climb. Not entirely sure why there are so many cars at this point on the road, because although we've lost the on-screen timing graphics, I will tell you that from the live data site, racecenter.lavuelta.es, front of the race is 39 seconds in front of 25 chasers. It's then a gap of 2:24 between those chasers. and the group of Almeida that we just saw with Marc Soler. And to bring you up to speed with the current gap between Almeida and the group of Evenepoel with the other GC favourites, it currently sits at 49 seconds, so it has come down a little bit.
Has come down a little bit, which indicates they are riding pretty much as hard as they can in that peloton. The domestics, or the super domestics, you'd have to call them at this point, that are trying to do the chasing, and that group of favourites, I think, will be really small by the time they get to the top.
Well, that's the top of this climb, so we'll have our traditional shot from the rear of the breakaway, so we can try and decipher who is actually going to win this King of the Mountains. You'd imagine that no one's going to contest it with Richard Carapaz. He won the previous categorised climb of the day. That was a second category, so he picked up 5 points there. This is a first category, so 10 points for the first rider across the line, and we got a frontal view. 10 points for Richard Carapaz. Sergio Higuita rolls across the line in second place, and after that it was Hugh Carthy. So Richard Carapaz started the day in second in the King of the Mountains. Jayvine no longer in it, so that means that Carapaz has got himself up to 45 points, which is over double the next rider in that competition, Tiemann Arensman, on 22. Well, there's even a climb after the finish line immediately of that climb.
Literally the worst thing you can have on a climb. If you're suffering all the way on the top of it, you get to the top, look up, you say, oh, typical. There's yet more climbing to come on this same climb.
Well, it'd be great to get some television pictures of what's happening in the main group of favourites behind, because as Robbie's just alluded to, if the gap to Almeida's come down, even with the help of Marc Soler, the likelihood is it's been very fast in that group of favourites. Last time we did get a look, there was just one rider from Astana in front of his team leader, Miguel Angel Lopez. This looks to be what's left of the breakaway behind our front group of 6 to me. So we've still got one of the riders there of Movistar. This getting very confusing, even as a commentator. This is still part of the breakaway as well. So it must be split all over the place. This is the one with the Movistar rider that I was talking about. Theo Gegenhardt still in this group, but of course he has a teammate up the road with Carapaz. We've still got Fausto Masnada there for Quick Step Alpha Vinyl, so he's there in case Evenepoel needs him later on today, but it can't be too long before they'll get to the top of this climb if they haven't been over it already.
This
is a group off the back of the main favourites, isn't it?
This is yeah, it's got to be off the back of the main favourites, because these riders at the back, they can see 207 and 211. They weren't part of the main breakaway of the day. So looks like the TV motorbike is stuck behind a group at the moment. And this is now, they're telling us, the group of the red jersey.
I don't think it is, because Theo Gegenhardt is there, and I cannot see the red jersey on the screen. So they're making it even more confusing than it needs to be in the first place. When you've got this many groups on the road, normally, at least with the graphics at the top of the screen, the one that's highlighted in red is the one that you're currently watching. But this, to me, looks again, and it definitely is, remnants of the breakaway just rolling across the line at the top of that climb. And not far behind them, that's why all the team cars were there, is Joao Almeida with Marc Soler. And dropping back to help his teammates behind is Vincenzo Nibali, the only Astana rider who made it into today's breakaway. Looks like he's been called back because they're worried about this man.
That means they're really feeling the pressure of this attack of Joao Almeida. When you call back the likes of Vincenzo Nibali out of a breakaway group where he has a chance of a stage win in his own glory, and the standing that Nibali has in the peloton and with his own team, to get that call, hey, come back, we need your help. They're getting a little bit desperate.
To give the producer on site his dues, it's difficult to know what to keep an eye on at this point in the race, but that there was the front of the race. Oh, what's happening here? So Carlos Rodriguez, the man who crashed heavily at the start of the stage before we had live coverage, losing a lot of skin, has also lost contact with this group. And look at the size, Adam, of the red jersey group. 9 riders left in the group of Remco Evenepoel. He has no teammates for company, but let's not forget, Robbie, he has Fausto Masnada up the road.
He does. And I was going to say, it's almost the top 10 of the race minus Almeida. And, of course, also minus Carlos Rodriguez, as you just mentioned. Rigoberto Urán still here in this group. Taman Arensman in front of him. Remco Evenepoel riding in third wheel. And not many domestics left at all. That's why Nibali's been called back. Because Lopez is now isolated.
So we have one domestique from Movistar, should I say, riding on the front. Behind, it's Remco Evenepoel. Miguel Angel Lopez is there. Jai Hindley is there. Number 12 is Clément Champoussin. I have seen his teammate in the top 10 of GC. Ben O'Connor is also a part of this group. Arensman, as Robbie mentioned, 2 riders from EF Education Easy Post, one of which is Iran, one of which is Marc Padun, who's dropped out of the breakaway in front. So Enric Mas also still there. So the big loser, as things stand, is the Spanish national champion, Carlos Rodriguez.
Which is completely understandable when it just looks like he's slid across a cheese grater at the beginning of the day. Really bashed up from that crash. And when you see some of these riders, Canton Pacheur was one of them. It's amazing that they even are able to get off the road and get back on the bike. And this is the return of Carlos Rodriguez, so brought back by Ben Turner. A few more riders cruising back on with him. Landa towards the back of the group here as well. Alejandro Valverde, Hagen. Look like Jan Pollant there at the back of the group as well. And this is now up in the remnants of the break, or the biggest part of the breakaway. Marc Soler on the front with Almeida in his wheel.
Blimey, going dizzy. So I don't think that Marc Soler is going to get particularly much help from the breakaway riders that he's just caught, along with his teammate Joao Almeida. Big old group, and I'm actually quite surprised at how much time they lost to the front of the race. So we've got the 6 riders out front. Richard Carapaz, former stage winner twice, of course, in this race, in amongst them. Robert Hessink there as well. Thibaut Pinot, who said he has fantastic legs yesterday, which we could see with our own eyes because he clung on to the group of the red jersey most of the way towards the finish. So a big opportunity there for the Frenchman of Groupama FDJ to pick up a stage win today. He's going to have to keep the red jersey group at bay, though.
I'm wondering if that 2:44 is correct. I mean, how could they lose that amount of time from that attack?
Well, I guess it's one of those things.
Such good climbers in this group, yeah.
Yeah, but also on that, Adam and I were talking about this earlier, but on those sorts of gradients, if you have any hesitancy with 6 riders or 3x3 really pressing on at the front, lots of people behind saying, well, I'm not doing all the work on a 5% gradient because you guys are going to be getting a lot of shelter behind me. And looking at the live updates online from the official Vuelta website, it does look like those gaps are correct. So as things stand, very good chance for these 6 riders at the front to fight it out for the stage victory, given the class and quality of the riders that we've got within this group. But gap between Almeida and the group of the red jersey, as you can see, it's just a little over 30 seconds at this point. If you've been away, welcome back. 6 riders out the front of this race. We've got 4 stages to go at La Vuelta a España. 3 of them could have changes on the general classification, and today is very much one of them. We have done the vast majority of the climbing. We've got this long descent now with that awful climb in the middle of it, then some flat road and a 13.5-kilometre climb up towards the finish at almost exactly the same 5% gradient that we had on the previous climb. Behind them, this is the rest of the breakaway group, being led by Marc Soler of UAE Team Emirates. He clawed Almeida up to this point, and he will now set about going as fast as he possibly can into the foot of that final climb. The last footage of the red jersey group that we had, there were only 9 riders left in it, and one missing from that group, Carlos Rodriguez of Ineos Grenadiers, who crashed heavily earlier on today. And if you weren't with us earlier, there was no live coverage at the time, but this was the aftermath of it. That is Carlos Rodriguez in the Spanish national champions jersey. He had to go to the team car He lost a lot of skin down his left-hand side. And on the deck there, in the blue and white jersey, is King of the Mountains, Jay Vine, who of all the riders who crashed was the only one, unfortunately, who had to abandon this race. So there you can see the footage of him getting into the ambulance. We wish Jay Vine all the best. He's been absolutely brilliant to watch across this Vuelta with those 2-stage wins. And agonising, Robbie, to watch him have to go home like that.
It is. It's horrible to see for a guy, you know, 2-stage wins in the mountain jersey. Everything was going so incredibly well for him. And just wrong place, wrong time, and come out of it with an injury that prevents him from getting back on the bike. And you'd see he's just distraught, not just the pain he was in, but the thoughts going through his head of all the work he's put in this Vuelta. I mean, no one will take the 2-stage wins away from him, of course, but he was on the brink of becoming the 3rd Australian to win the King of the Mountains jersey in the Vuelta after Simon Clark and Michael Storer, who won it last year. And
that was another example. I was thinking that. I know Simon
horrible.
Clark's won it. Who was the other one? Oh, yes, last year. Michael Storer.
Yeah, I did that one to myself the other week. I was like, yep, only one's won it before. Oh, yeah, except for the one last year. It was the second one. Yeah, but a real shame for Jay Vine, and you know, we wish him a really speedy recovery. And I know so many people, the cycling fans across the world now, are familiar with Jay Vine and love the way he rides, and we look forward to seeing him floating up mountains again in the near future.
Well, because of his departure, that's how things now look in the mountains classification. 45 points to Richard Carapaz of Ineos Grenadiers, who's also won, like Jay Vine, 2 stages of this race. Second, I think, was Robert Stannard on 22 points, teammate of Jay Vine, who picked most of those up towards the end of the first week of this race. So just to remind you of who we've got up the roads today. Eddie Gesbert is the rider in the bright yellow there of Arkea Samsic. In the slightly softer yellow of Jumbo-Visma, we have Robert Hessink. There is Richard Carapaz at the back for the Ineos Grenadiers. Hugh Carthy, great to see him at the front of this race. We've not seen too much so far of the Brit in this Vuelta. He's there, as well as Sergio Higuita, the Colombian national champion of Bora-Hansgrohe. And finally, the likeable Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot of Groupama FDJ. Oh, 30 kilometres to go. It's now time for me to hand you back over to Carlton Kirby. I hope you've managed to keep up with this a bit more than I have.
To be honest, I've been bouncing all over the place trying to find timing screens that work. I think we just about got a handle on it. But that's the fascination of the day. And to be honest, there's been a lot of times throughout this entire race where we've been asking ourselves, goodness me, what's going to happen next? I mean, even when Craddock went on the attack fabulously so for Team Bike Exchange yesterday, and then went on the attack again, it was like, hang on a minute, when's he going to give up? But he just didn't. And that's what I love about this race in particular. It seems like for some it's last chance saloon, some it's a celebration of what's been a great season, as we've already mentioned, but the drama of what's the design of the parkour has been absolutely outstanding. And we had rain a few moments ago, or the first spots of it. You might see some more a little bit later. Thankfully, it looks like the sunny side of the hill is nice and dry, and so as a result we've got a bit more impetus for those guys who find themselves up front. Whether they'll be up front at the end of the day is anybody's guess. But Hessink, Higuita, Carthy, Pinot, Carapaz and Eddie Gesbert. Well, we're hoping that we will have a breakaway show at the end of today, notwithstanding any interruptions that we hope do not befall us. But as we come down this beautiful series of switchbacks, Robbie, this is glorious.
It is glorious to watch these shots, and I'm just keeping an eye on the groups, and I think that was the group with Soler and Almeida that was at bottom of screen, and this is what's become of what's our main peloton, with a melting back together and catching a number of riders who were in the break earlier. I think it's a little bit difficult to say, chopping and changing. What we do know is these 6 men out the front are going to be very difficult to catch with a 2.5 minute gap. And the likes of climbers like Carthy, Carapaz, Hessink, Higuita, Gesbert and Pinot, once they get to the foot of this final 13-kilometre climb, I can't see anybody catching them to take the win.
It's a fantastic band of brothers, Sean Kelly. Who, are you with us, Sean?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Oh, good lad. 6 riders, any of whom could take the day, and that's what's been fascinating throughout, isn't it? Yesterday, we saw the sprint for the line. It was only because Rigoberto Urán had played very, very clever. Who's playing clever in this group, Sean?
Well, it's an interesting one. I think everybody is doing their turn here, and you have to do it with the position in the race, the advantage they've got. You're not allowed, to take it easier, and if you're doing that, the riders will notice it very quickly, and you'll get the call. It's all depend again, like yesterday, who have got a bit more left when we get onto the final climb. That'll be the question. And yesterday, Rigoberto Urán, we did see him the way he rode, but when he had to ride, he did ride, and he closed riders down. But then when he was in a position where the stage was there to take, he just backed off a little bit, and experience, and I suppose as well to be cool. Sometimes the riders, when they get into the final like that, they can lose it a bit, but he was very cool yesterday and had that bit more than the others on that just drag to the line.
Well, he is he's such a great character, to be honest, Rigoberto Urán. He's one of those people who engenders an awful lot of affection throughout the peloton, and he probably had a sore back today after all the people who come up and slapped him on the back to wish him all the very best. They've got another opportunity with Hugh Carthy. That would be a bit cathartic, no pun intended, Robbie, if Hugh did get a result today.
It would be fantastic to see Hugh Carthy get a big result and win the stage. I've been a little bit surprised throughout this race that we haven't seen him earlier, but that's without knowing any of the hardships that he suffered himself throughout the Vuelta. Because you go through a Grand Tour, you're going to have ups and downs, and sometimes you have riders with little problems going on or hindrances that you don't hear about or know everything about, that ends up being the reason they haven't been as active as you may well expect. But it looks like Hugh Carthy's coming through well at the end of this Vuelta, and he's in a really tough group to beat. But Hugh Carthy, he's a pure climber, and this final climb, although it averages around 6%, I think it is, 5.6% average grade, it has some really steep, difficult sections where the pure climbers come into their own. And let's face it, he's as good a chance as any, and maybe the fact that he hasn't been in many breaks so far in this Vuelta is going to be a good thing for him. He'll be maybe a little bit fresher than some of the others who are with him in that group.
Let's wait and see, shall we? 2 minutes and 14 back to Almeida. For those of you who are just joining us, having sailed over from the Tour of Britain, today's been a mighty day for a breakaway, but that breakaway is fractured, and mainly because of the efforts of this man, Almeida. He was in the peloton, and they were, getting on for well over 5 minutes down on a substantial breakaway of 43 riders that looked like it was going to go all the way. We're now asking ourselves some questions because of the strength and the battle plan that's been invoked here by UAE Team Emirates. So watertight is the battle plan, it seems, that even Marc Soler has towed the line, which is something we're not used to. Vincenzo Nibali was up the road and was not expected maybe to be very much part of proceedings for the peloton, but dropped back because Miguel Angel Lopez is fearful of the move by Almeida, who's gone up the road. Don't forget that he started the day, Almeida, 6 minutes and 51 down. Well, he's now, 30 seconds only ahead of this red jersey group, which actually looks like a breakaway itself because it's so thinned down. It's been thinner than this as well, I can tell you. Probably about 25, 28 riders as it stands at the moment. That's Louis Benke's just struggling to stay on the back. You can see what sort of pace they're dealing with on some of the ramps. This is a little climb, a sub-climb, if you will, as part of our move towards our final test of the day. Almost seems a little bit unkind, but they'll kick up over it, and then we'll be descending again, which we can see from those who are chasing down the 6 up front. This is the Almeida group that you are looking at. Graphics just struggling to catch up at the moment. We'll do our best to bounce you in the right direction. Out front, what you need to know is that with a margin of just over 2 minutes, it's Rob Hessink from Jumbo-Visma. They had 3 in the break earlier on. Sergio Aguita, the Colombian champion from Bora Hansgrohe. He also had a couple of teammates along with him for the ride. Hugh Carthy Well, talk about slingshot up the road. He had, what, 4 other teammates up there. Kudus, Padun, Shaw, Van den Berg. Carthy's in the front group and looking very, very strong. Look at the way Nibali is cornering here. This is phenomenal. Richard Carapaz is up there, twice a stage winner. Wants another one, thank you very much. And he has taken the lead in the King of the Mountains jersey competition. And why is that? Because unfortunately, for those of you only just joining us from the Tour of Britain, Jay Vine crashed earlier on today in the King of the Mountains jersey and is out of the race. Really sad. More than that as well, Carlos Rodriguez ripped to shreds in the same incident. Mats Pedersen in the green jersey got away with it. He was also involved in the crash, as was second place yesterday, Kentin Pasher. You're about up to speed. But anything can change, and probably will, quite frankly. Almeida has been tagged, more or less, 30 seconds from the red jersey group, and most of the work, as part of the chase, has been done by Astana. Miguel Angel Lopez does not want to give away too much, Robbie, and he's got Nibali, who's doing a great job of guiding him down this descent.
Well, he was doing a great job of guiding him down, and now Lopez just lost the wheel through the last corner.
I did see that as I said it.
If you don't have the skills of Vincenzo Nibali and the confidence in your descending and your equipment, then you're pretty quickly going to find yourself out of the wheel, and probably a good thing for Lopez to go safety first mode. And then work a little bit harder to catch back up to his teammate. But Nibali, it's been Nibali versus Soler for the last few minutes, and Nibali has reduced the gap to around 30 seconds. So it looks like Almeida taking off. He was in with a chance of jumping up the GC by probably a couple of positions. As it stands, with him almost reeled back in, he's now in danger of possibly losing a place on GC if Taman Arensman has had an easier ride than Almeida's given himself, and can drop the Portuguese on the final climb, and maybe those are the positions that will swap at the end of the day.
Well, 25 are just about to be met by that group of around about the same margin, possibly a few more as well. The red jersey group, they're about to merge by the looks of things. 23 seconds only separating them, which means that at long last we may have a chance for our breakaway. They'll be bouncing into the foot of the valley. They have a little bit of flat-ish land before they take on our final climb today, which will be the second time of asking up the Piornal, albeit from a different approach. Pretty much the same at the top. They play with the same cone, if you will, but they are indeed at the moment just pushing on, and with a margin of 1 minute and 57, I think there's enough talent here to make it home. 6 up the road, being chased by the red jersey group that's about, it seems, to merge with the Almeida group, so named because João Almeida kicked out of the main peloton, bridged over to the main body of a breakaway, which was huge, of 43 riders. 6 riders thought to themselves, to hell with this, we're off the front. Almeida did get onto that big bunch from a bigger breakaway bunch, I think we could probably call it. It's hard to know what to call it, to be honest. And we're going to get emerging surely behind, because there's too much will in the chase, because Miguel Angel Lopez did not want Almeida going up the road and starting to knock on the door of podium places, which he believes belong to him. Nibali dropped out of the original break. Here he is doing a great power display at the moment. Still 24 seconds between the red jersey group and indeed those that sit in front, including Almeida, but off the front, and indeed potentially to have some fun with 21 kilometers to go. And we only say that because of the firepower involved. There's an amazing 6 riders up the road, Sean, and they could be, if it all comes together behind them, and it looks like it will, they could be on for a duking out for the stage win.
Yes, it should be for the men out front, because we have, real talented riders for this sort of climb to the finish. But again, we can see Astana is the ones, and Nibali is the one who's driving it on. When you look at that group there of red jersey, there's a lot of the Movistar riders just hanging around there. So if a team like that want to push on, and we have seen already during the stage, Carlos Rodriguez, a very heavy fall in that crash in the earlier part, he suffered already, and Lopez is just behind him in the GC. So there's going to be no presence given on this final climb, so we might see some of those teams wanting to push on, notably the Movistar guys, but Lopez as well. But has he got the manpower now for the left to do that, because they have done a lot of work within the Astana team. But it's an interesting one, with this advantage for the 6 or the 5 riders, sorry, is it up front, or 6 riders, sorry, but yeah, so it's going to be an interesting final, but it should be good enough time advantage for the breakaway.
Just under 20 kilometres from home, minute and 52. I think they're going to get there, Robbie.
Oh, it's really hanging in the balance for mine, because these six, as good as they are, what they really need is the red jersey group led by Vincenzo Nibali on behalf of Miguel Angel Lopez. They need that group to catch the Almeida group, and there to be a little bit of a standoff on the way to the final climb, because if it's under 2 minutes to all the GC favourites, and a team like Movistar decide to push on and try and keep the race really hard, or indeed even go after a stage win, I'm not sure 2 minutes is going to be enough.
Let's see. I've got a feeling that it's been too beneficial as it stands today for Remco Evenepoel. He's had a bit of a magic carpet ride because other teams have been very concerned about who's up the road. It's still bashing on, isn't it? And they might, you're right, they could almost catch them by accident, but look at the gap here. It's starting to... Sean, is it tumbling or is it holding steady at the moment? What have we got? 25 seconds. It's marginal, the difference, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It hasn't been coming down there. Back to this group led by Nibali. It hasn't come down, very quickly. But again, the chasing group in between this group and the breakaway out front, when they catch them, that will be an interesting one to see. Will they have a little bit of looking around and who's going to do the chasing, or will they be a team take it on? If they do, well then this could become a very, very tight final, and for the breakaway to go all the way to take the stage win here. And this is a day that is going to really really in the legs in the next days. And let's not forget, we have another difficult stage tomorrow. I know they're not big climbs, but still a climb out of the start, a second category, a short stage as well, 138 kilometres. They can be the real danger ones. And then of course Saturday we have the monstrous stage again.
Sorry about my yelp. Just worried about people going through the corners here. And what's going through the mind of those who are up the road, thinking, gosh, we thought we'd got clear of this nonsense, but absolutely not. It's a bagatelle, and I've just no idea where the marble's going to fall here, Robbie.
That's what's the great thing about this stage and in general about this entire race. We've had so much just unbridled racing action. Nobody has held much back at all, and the team tactics playing out like we see today with Almeida and Soler trying to hold off the chase of Nibali with Lopez. The stage win up for grabs up front, but as we've just been talking over the last kilometre and a half, the gap's fallen by another 10 seconds to these six, who, despite working really well together, they'll all be up there thinking, I've just got to save that little bit. I'm going to continue to work. I'm going to do my share, but I know there's a climb coming. I want to win the stage. So they're gambling that little bit. But that gap is coming down all the time. Now 2 minutes back to the group containing Remco Evenepoel in the race leader's jersey. So it's going to be a tight one, I reckon.
And the look at the gap as well between the Almeida group and the chase being invoked by the red jersey group. They've done a fantastic job. In fact, that's narrowing significantly. That looks like they may well finally come together. This is that flatland as well, Sean, where it's difficult to maintain an advantage, especially when it's so tenuous between the two chasing groups. This group of six, do you think it might come off the heat behind them? If it is going to be a regrouping here, and you can see Nibali really emptying himself spectacularly so to achieve just that.
Yes, well, we can see that this group of red jersey, Nibali is the one who was just continuing on the downhill. Now he's continuing on here on the little bit of a low gradient uphill, and out we have in the breakaway Almeida. It's Soler who is pushing on, and yeah, this is going to be a spectacular final here, because as we get ever so closer to the start of the climb, these guys, they know that the advantage they have, they cannot hang around. You can see everybody is going through, doing their piece on the front, pulling it along, because if you start to sit on, well then it totally just deorganises the breakaway, and that will be the killer of it. And with this advantage, they cannot do that.
Coming through, Rob Hessink here, often in the service of others, of course, works so hard for Primož Roglič. Thibaut Pinot, I think possibly most neutrals would love to see him get something today. Stage win. Well, this man, Richard Carapaz, already 2 stage wins under his belt for this race, and I guess the statements just continued to happen for him. He'd have hoped for a bigger margin after getting into that breakaway, possibly start thinking about a top 10, but he's 26 minutes down he started, and it's going to be marginal, but he is a danger when we get to the end. Also within that group, Hugh Carthy. I'd like to describe who started the move, really, but Hugh Carthy was the diesel engine that helped create it, I think it's fair to say. They've got Elie Jesper as well in the bright yellow, of course, of the change kit of Arkea Samsic for this race. It was too close to the red of the leader to be born otherwise. And the other is Sergio Guita. No slouch either. Of course, Colombian champion for Bora. 6 up fronts that, quite frankly, at a moment like this, if we hadn't had the day we've had, we'd be saying, well, it's theirs. There's only 15 kilometres to go. They're all brilliant climbers. But it's been so rough, Robbie, you don't know who's left something behind.
You don't, and you don't know the state of freshness of these riders in the front. There's a few of them been in multiple breaks, like Richard Carapaz, but we know he's just such a high-quality rider. And a guy who's won a Grand Tour in the past, when he won the Giro in 2019, he's not a guy who tends to fold towards the end of a Grand Tour. So he's still a good chance of staying ahead, as is Thibaut Pinot, won big mountain stages in Grand Tours in the past. But the gap continues to fall, 1:34 to the group of Almeida. They're still holding just over 20 seconds to the chasing group. This one here on screen, Remco Evenepoel in third wheel in red. It's Vincenzo Nibali on the front. And in second wheel, his team leader for GC, Miguel Angel Lopez. And just under 2 minutes to that leading group of 6. There'll be moments on this climb where all the groups will only be separated by some 600 or 700 metres on the road.
Here's Remco Evenepoel. The gift for him today is the work that's been done by other teams, quite frankly. And he's still got teammates around him, Sean. He must be delighted by the way this one has panned out.
Yes, well, he will be really happy that the other teams started to take up the work, and he has one teammate left with him there, Ilan van Wilder, and they have a man out front, of course, as well, who was in the breakaway from the earlier part, Masnada. So it's a good situation, and when you take Remco Evenepoel onto the final climb, we know the way he's able to control the race, and with the advantage he's got over some of the riders. We see yesterday again, he was working that tactic. Who can I leave right away? Who can I not have to be in the wheel immediately? He is in a real good position. Today was a day, if the team had to do it, well, then they would be in big difficulty trying to control this one. But as you say, Carlton, other teams with interest in the GC doing the work for the team of the red jersey.
Well, this is that swollen group, now at 25, hasn't come together, by the way. The gap it fell to about 12 seconds according to the ticker, but is now back out to 20. Some angry clouds here. I don't believe that they are, well, they're not going to be of a major concern, because it is our last mountaintop finish of this year's race. Oh, here we go. Time to engage, Robbie.
It is, and they're on the foot of the Alto de Piornal, and as you said, even if the clouds open and the road is wet, then traction is the least of their concerns at the speeds they'll be travelling on this this final climb. 13 kilometres, average of 5.6%, but kickers in it, there's 15, 18, and even little pieces of 20% through some of the corners. So it's a really tough climb, irregular gradients too. So one of those ones where it's hard to find your rhythm. So look to the climbers who like that change of rhythm. And up in the front, I think, well, no one better to look at than a 2-time stage winner in this race already, and now leader of the King of the Mountains competition, Olympic champion Richard Carapaz.
He must be so delighted with the way this is panned out, quite frankly, because at no point, I'm certain, did any rider know how this one would materialise. Here we are.
This is the group of Almeida, and now it's one of the riders from Bahrain victorious setting the pace. So who else is in there that would warrant them doing a big turn like this?
Still driving on, and just looking at the gap, who else is going to take advantage is Theo Geoghegan Hart.
It's Gino Mader, I assume that
30
they're
odd
riding
minutes
for.
down. Let us wait and see. I'm just looking at it's hard to keep an eye on the screen. Oh dear, mind you will probably want to look away, Sean, when you see that. What a brave ride, I must admit, by Carlos Rodriguez. There's our one-man band at the side of the road, but just torn to pieces by the activity today, and not a happy sight for anybody.
No, it's not a nice one to see, and you know, he has very, very severe road rash there, and we can see the elbow, you know, plastered up. What is, you know, the problem under that? And this kind of an effect, you know, you get through the stage, you're feeling the soreness, but then the night time you can have a sleepless night discomfort, and the days follow, and it can be you know, have a big effect on your form and your performance.
Elie Gesbert was part of the front group and has decided to, are we allowed to say, do a Craddock?
Well, you're going long range. I mean, Craddock, he attacked before the climb started, well before in this group. Elie Gesbert, and he's been riding really aggressively over the last week, been in a couple of breakaways and gone close to getting himself a stage victory in this race, and he's looking really, really good.
He is.
What to do when you're in a group of really strong climbers? Make the first attack and just see if they'll all look at each other while you ride away.
Well, you know, he has produced some great performances in the past as Elie Gesbert, and he's possibly the least considered of those who are out front. Well, he's making a statement right now. He's asking questions of those around him. There are 5 that will follow on, and I guess you might say the same deal might happen back here. I'm just wondering whether it's job done with the margin that has been taken. We're looking at the red jersey group now, back only a minute and 39 down. Just struggling once again to find out where all the other groups are. The group Almeida, we understand this is how it pans. The chasers behind, of course, Gesbert has gone off the front, is one thing, but the margin is 35 seconds, I understand, between the Almeida group and the red jersey group. I'm just wondering, Sean, whether they've done enough to put the fire out for Almeida, and the red jersey group are now preserving themselves for their own battle.
Well, I think the Almeida group, you know, the advantage they've got is not anything great, and
exactly.
The way he set out in the earlier part of the day, I think Almeida and UAE team members were hoping to get a lot more out of this one, but now we can see Backlands there also pushing on the front. But the interesting one, we see Valverde getting distant there at the very beginning, also Kelderman. That tells that this pace, you know, racing full on all day is just taking effect on the riders that have got the fatigue, because those riders, this sort of terrain, they should be able to live here in this group of the race leader jersey, and they're already, you know, just out the rear door.
Well, he's doing it all on his own at the moment. As you can see, he's got a phalanx of would-be breakaway riders behind him. He bridged over with the help of his teammates who dropped back, including Marc Soler. Spectacularly so, and right now he's I guess in charge of his own destiny, or the team are. They've done a fantastic job, but I'm afraid it's not a battle plan that's worked to perfection or as much as they would have hoped. It's Movistar just kicking on at the moment, and you can also see tucked in there Miguel Angel Lopez, who I think has done enough, quite frankly, to make sure that his position overall is not overtly threatened. He'll want to hold on to that top 5. It was Almeida who was eating into that, but separated as they were by, what, a minute and 20. So there's a margin there that he's got to play with, and I don't think he'll fear it. Might live to regret that, of course, but hey, let's wait and see. So dig into the mountains, Sean, and it's nuggets they're after, and an information nugget I can tell you is that Elie Gesbert still holds a very tenuous margin on those out front. Its details only 5 seconds, but we haven't seen him for a while, so fingers crossed that's the case. Sean, it's one of those days where we're going to end it as breathless as it almost started. It was high pace from the beginning. It feels like there's been no let-up.
No, there haven't been any let up today. It's been, you know, right from the start we did see that, you know, big speed, trying to get into the breakaway, crashes in the earlier part of the stage, and it just went on from the point that the big breakaway got away, and then with Almeida going in the attack, it just caused panic in a lot of places, mainly back in the peloton. But now we can see on the final climb here with the group out front, There's riders starting to push on, but there's a lot of riders there want to sit on now because they have, maybe a teammate out front, so they're not going to do anything. And it looks like that, yes, unless we see major action out of the main peloton, I don't think there's enough of strong riders in what's left of the breakaway. We see Maida there just working with Almeida on the front and trying to keep the pace and keep the advantage.
It's when to go on against Elie Jesper, who is doing a great job of pacing himself at the moment. If he's doing a credit, he's doing a magnificent job. He holds a 12-second margin over Hessink, Higuita, Hugh Carthy, Thibaut Pinot and Richard Carapaz. And when you say those names, you realise he really does have his work cut out for him, I'm afraid. I'm just wondering whether this group, and indeed the one ahead, will kind of hold station, at least for the time being. Let's see if they start taking bits out of each other late on. It's not really any longer necessary to attack Remco Evenepoel. Not after a day like this. They're going to have to keep it until much later, possibly the penultimate stage, Robbie. Oh, look at the cost.
Possibly, and the job done for Marc Soler, and it's been a great job by Soler today. They threw it out there. They've taken a risk by going so far out, and if things had gone the way of Almeida, he could have made a big jump up the GC, and he still can make a jump up the GC. And here's an attack by Mas.
Fantastic. Well, just as we say, maybe they'll keep it powder dry for another day. Not a bit of it. Mas heads off. Remco Evenepoel goes straight on his wheel, and this is Ben O'Connor as well coming up to join the fun. This is fantastic. 9.4 kilometres to go. Quality will out. When you start griddling for grains, then you get the very best left behind, and that's or indeed in the palm of your hand, you might say. It's on our screens at the moment. Time to dig in, Sean, if you want to find seconds quite clearly, but when you've got a man who's able to drop back as well, and a very good one with Fausto Masnada, that's almost a gift, Sean, at a moment like this.
Well, it is great to have a teammate up there who has probably been trying to, spare as much energy as possible all during the day. And you can see Remco Evenepoel there. Masnada, when he's seen coming up, he wanted to push on very quickly, but no panic. He just left from right on there. And we can see Ben O'Connor starting to push out here. And
Fabro as well.
He's watching the red jersey. He's just watching Mas for the moment, and yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tactical one. The surprise one was that we did not see the man from Astana moving there as well, Lopez, because I thought he would be the one off the team doing a lot of work. But yeah, it's not going anywhere. This one is pretty much coming back together again with all the big favourites, except for Ben O'Connor out just in front.
Robbie, it took an awful lot of effort to try and close the gap on the Almeida group, and I'm just wondering what cost that was for Miguel Angel Lopez. As this is fantastic, bridging over to your man. It's Rob Hessink who now wants to grab, and why not? He's been given a free ticket to ride here. No Primož Roglič, of course, for him to look after. Now, Robbie, he can look after himself, but can he?
Oh, well, that's the question, because he's done a lot of work already in this Vuelta for Primož Roglič, has Robert Geesink, and now he's free to fly. He's been a big winner in the past. He is a pure climber, but if he's got enough in the tank, he caught Jesper, but he was able to latch on, and the others are certainly not very far away. And this move back here, Ben O'Connor now being tracked by Miguel Angel Lopez, because they all know they've got Carlos Rodriguez in trouble. O'Connor's probably thinking more about stage victory. He picks up a teammate now in Nils Peters.
Fantastic.
So this rider's going backwards, forwards all over the road, and all the team tactics playing out. Another Movistar teammate now dropping back. He's on the lookout for Enric Mas, who's already made an attack on this climb. The group of favourites now back together. Ben O'Connor, he's trying to get rid of the man behind him in black, Tam and Arensman. 125 down on him on GC at the start of today. That would be the move he could possibly make if he could get rid of him, but he can't at the moment. But they'll also be thinking about stage victory, because their gap to the front of the race is only 1 minute and 9 seconds.
There's a Yuzo, also part of this group, wearing the Young Riders classification jersey. And they're just pinging off the front. Is it Fabro who's decided to leave them all in the wake? Louis Meintjes just wondering whether he can invoke something, having already taken a stage win. This is great to see. A proper battling going on here. And look at the gap. The Almeida group now, Group 3, only 55 seconds in arrears of, Higuita, Carthy, Pinot and Carapaz, with Hessink and Jesper still with a modest margin, but we haven't seen much of them for a while. I understand it's still 12 seconds, but frankly, who knows until we see the pictures. Almost into the hoarded sections, in fact, just suggesting itself right now. This is just advertising at the moment, and there as well, advertising just how cool he is. Remco Evenepoel kind of drifts over, has a look back into the faces of those who might upset him, and it's starting to kick off again. That's Reichenbach who wants to just go and roll off the front. Nearest to us, Mikkel Lander as well. Great names here, Sean, plenty of them. They've all had a job today.
Yes, and some had a bigger job than others. The ones had to, ride on the front of the peloton or, ride in the breakaway. That is a big day for them. The riders who are following the wheels, you get a bit of an easy ride. But we can see here, the pace is not high, and that's the reason we're seeing little bits of movement. Riders going off the front here, and yeah, there's a big scatter of bike riders all over this mountain.
Certainly are. Oh, here we go. Evenepoel chasing after Meintjes. Asked the question of Enric Mas. That's answered, as you can see. And Rigoberto Urán is not to be outdone as well. He wants a part of the day. Who knows when Rigo's in this kind of mood? This is fantastic. Rock and roll all over this mountain. And it looks like Bandmaster might just happen to be Remco Evenepoel after all.
Oh, this is such exciting racing in every single group. And Evenepoel, he says, I have had enough. Chopping and changing, speed on, speed off. He says now it's speed on all the way to the top. With just 102 Group Arensman, which Evenepoel is now approaching to the front of the race. This is still winnable for the group of favourites if somebody wants to push on with it. They've all been looking at each other. Everyone's having a little go at attacking. They've picked up teammates. They've shot them out the back. Different riders going off the front. This is the group now with O'Connor, Arensman, Jai Hindley and Remco Evenepoel straight around the outside. It's a red flash. Blink and you miss him.
Fantastic. Oh, the red flash has gone, and a little bomblet's gone off as well. Ben O'Connor wants to come and join the fun. It was of course, Jai Hindley, brilliantly so. 53 seconds for the red jersey from out front. My life, you've got 7.1 kilometres to drag race to the top. They're starting to pick them all up here. Well, Rigoberto Urán, reinvigorato Urán, I think you might say. He's doing a phenomenal job. And he's keeping tabs on just about everybody here. O'Connor out of the saddle, back into it as well. They can't settle. Tiemann Arensman as well, setting a nice pace. Steady one, stays planted. Evenepoel looks over his shoulder and looks ahead. And guess who? Tags Almeida, who caused all the problems throughout the day. Meanwhile, the duo up front, what have they got left? What margin have they got? Only 43 seconds. Back to Remco Evenepoel, and might well just go and win the day. What can the response possibly be, Sean Kelly?
Well, I think the only thing you can do is just keep on giving here, at your best, and hopefully that there will be a little bit of a slow down the pace. We can see, Evenepoel, he just knocks it off a bit, but I think still with 6.7 to go, this advantage, it is going to be an interesting one, because if teams started to push on, and we can see here again Movistar wanting to push ahead, I think there's riders here in this group that are going to think, well, the stage win is up here, still, for the taking. So, it could get a lot more active as we go into this final 6 kilometres. And yeah, what a day it's turned out, because when you see in the earlier part, they had 9 minutes earlier in the stage, and it's all back to a very tight margin at the moment, still with 6.5 to go.
Robbie, this is all
Lopez.
because... go ahead.
Dropped, Lopez dropped, Ayuso dropped, Carlos Rodriguez out the back. So men who are all looking to jump over each other are all dropped at the same time. So who's going to be the beneficiary? Almeida, as Hessink goes off the front now.
He does. He says, see ya. This is my big chance. And he's going to grind into this mountain, as he does. Set a tempo, of course. Difficult to maintain as there's a few chops and changes. Some hairpins to take here. Not overly technical. Good road surface. Nice and dry for him. And like a cold-hearted assassin, he just has to do the job right now. He's used to grinding down the opposition on behalf of somebody else, and right now he's got to do it for himself. The red jersey swapping places with that Ayuso group, and of course it contains the white jersey as well. Apologies for the graphic mashup there. I was confused myself, thinking Carapaz may well have just blown up now that he leads that competition, but they popped up the wrong jersey. Carapaz is still up ahead. This is Group 3 you're looking at the moment. 39 seconds only is their deficit. Still 6 kilometres to go. The transponders have been struggling to get gaps out here, but it's just been extinguished. To this man from Bora Agita, the Colombian champion, is collected, and so indeed may well be the superstars of the breakaway. It's only a margin of a handful of seconds, possibly less than 5 between Hessig and Jesper. We're waiting to see them, but what a bridge as well by Evenepoel, taking no prisoners, able to, I guess, just sustain a good level of power within his body, and I'm certain he's going to start using it. He won't mind paying the fine for that bottle if it gets collected by a fan, and indeed if it's exactly what he needs to finish the job off today. Can Evenepoel win this, Sean?
Yes, it's very possible he will, because we see the way he went, across to that group of Almeida when he just, turned on the gas. He just was looking so easy and just going by riders at such a fast rate. And now it's a question, will he just be content here to sit in this group and wait for the other GC men if they go on the attack, or will he try and think of the stage victory? And if he does, well, this could be a real problem for the men that has been out in the breakaway for all day.
Carthy.
Again, it's coming down to a very, very tight one.
Yeah, Carthy's been tagged as well, the main instigator of that sextet that went off up the road. This man's gone up the road himself. Still haven't got a margin back to Elie Jesper. Camera tucks in behind him. Jesper, no sign of him just for the time being, and the margin he has over the red jersey has extended. He's got 5.3 kilometres to go. The inclines ease just a little bit down to 5%. Open mouthed. I can't tell whether he's grimacing or indeed being spoken to by his team here, because they know he's on TV. I don't know. I don't know how much help messages delivered at a moment such as this, other than just go for it, my friend. And we hope he does. One of the helpers could help himself here, Robbie.
All you can do is wind the dial up to 100 if you're Robert Geesink, and see if you can pull off what at this stage is, I wouldn't say unlikely, but a stage win hanging in the balance, depending on the pace being set here by Carlos Verona for Enric Mas and what Remco Evenepoel wants to do, because he looks like he's toying with them. That big attack to go across to the group of O'Connor and Arensman just had so much fire on it. Here comes Gegenhardt. He's leading Carlos Rodriguez and Ayuso back towards the front of the race. So Lopez, he's also getting a ride on and clawing his way back as well. So it looks like it's going to be, with 5 kilometres to go, just about status quo on the general classification, but their struggles aren't over yet. Another nearly 5 kilometres for their nearest rivals on GC to offload them and make some inroads, with a few big days yet to come.
This is basically a mountain sprint at the moment. Robert Hessig is setting a tempo, but I'm afraid others are starting to dance into the margin. We have Elie Jesper still listed as the chase. Not sure whether he is there, because we haven't seen him for a while. Waiting to tag Thibaut Piornal and Richard Carapaz, who's done a phenomenal amount of work. And they may well just pop up out front and indeed tag Rob Hessig. Let's see. 47 seconds, 48, bouncing back to this group, and great work by Theo Gegenhardt on behalf of Carlos Rodriguez, putting a fire out, I think you might say, getting a free ride as well. Joining that fun was Miguel Landa and Louis Meintjes, who will just be glad to... Oh, and here goes Miguel Angel Lopez, just trying to get the jump on absolutely everybody. Dead center of the road, drifts over to the left, and he is going for it, and chased by Juan Ayuso, wears the young rider's jersey, and this will be seen by Mas. Of course it will be seen by Remco Evenepoel, but they stay absolutely locked together, and I don't think that Evenepoel is going to invest any more in this unless Mas moves. He suddenly does, and of course now forced to engage is Evenepoel. Blows ringing down. There's the Carapaz detail now. Second on the road. Haven't had a word from Jesper. I think he's with that group, which means that Hessig's got a margin of 28 with 4 kilometres to go. 43 on this group. If they ebb and flow with their attacks on each other, as poor old Carlos Rodriguez, who hit the deck, and Mas it is with a tow rope, as you can see, looks around in the rear view mirror, and there's the big, well, not grinning face, but you get the idea of Remco Evenepoel saying, you, my friend, are going absolutely nowhere.
For a split second, there was a bike length between Mas and Evenepoel. They dropped all the rest, but Evenepoel got back on terms and follows another attack now by Mas.
Mas is out of the saddle and back in like a jack in a box here, but the man on the spring, as you can see, is stuck on his back wheel here. Remco Evenepoel, and they drift and weave, and all that it's going to do is help Robert Hessing, who's up the road, only 33 seconds ahead, don't forget. They're about, I believe, to collect Thibaut Pinot, Richard Carapaz. Haven't seen them just yet, and the motorcycle camera, if it switched the other way, I'm sure that they would be in view. Race Centre is declaring that the gap now to Carapaz from Hessing up front is now 28 seconds. It was down to 12, by the way. So that's showing what pace is being instigated here, Sean, by the man from Jumbo-Visma. He's putting up a great battle.
Yes, he is, and he knows that this is an opportunity to go for another stage win in the Vuelta. He has two already, of course, the one, the team time trial at the start of this race, and a stage win back many years ago. And you just have to go full gas, as they say in cycling. And as Robbie said, you just, dial it up 100%, and you're hoping that you can keep that 100% going all the way.
O'Connor goes and Thibaut Arensman onto his back wheel. This may well engender a response from those behind, but it's a mark-out duty at the moment for Evenepoel versus Enric Mas. It's about stage glory for some of the others, I feel, at a moment such as this, but they've got to find these 33 seconds if they want it. Thibaut Pinot and Richard Carapaz look like they're tiring, and no surprise, they will have had a bigger job to do today with their noses in the wind, Robbie, on more of an occasion than the likes of Remco Evenepoel, who's been able to sit in and follow today.
Yeah, well, looking at this group now, it looks like they've almost punched themselves out of it. They've thrown everything they've got. Hessing, he's settled into his tempo. He's got 25 seconds on Carapaz and Pinot, and this group has done nothing but attack each other. Full sprint, sit up again. And when it comes down to it, that's not the way they're going to pull back Robert Hessing, as he's settled into his tempo, and he is still holding 30-plus seconds. But with 3 kilometres to go, it is still completely open. One huge acceleration from the likes of Remco Evenepoel could snuff this out. And even Enric Mas, why would he not just go and ride for the stage at this point? On this climb, he won't get rid of Remco Evenepoel. He can get rid of all the rest, and he could ride himself to a stage win in this Vuelta to go along with his current second place on GC.
Well, it would be a magnificent performance if he does. It might quieten down some of the rather noisy complaints that he gets from the Spanish public, unfairly, I believe. 2.7 kilometres to come. A couple of hairpins still to take, Sean, before Rob Hessing could go. Oh, look at this, Evenepoel. Statement time. This is it now, this sort of sprint. And as you can see, Enric Mas, look at Miguel Angel Lopez as well, looking around, looking for help, looking for somebody to go over. Can't do it himself. Arensman goes. He's got Rigoberto Urán coming along for the party as well. Mas sits up and has a look. He's on the radio here, just beaming back to base. Beam me up, Scotty, almost. He might be saying 26 seconds only from this group to Hessing. Every time Evenepoel goes, I think he's going to win the stage, Sean. 2.4 kilometres to go.
Yes, well, he looks impressive when he goes, but Mas is able to match him and the rest as well. But it's all a tactic here on the mountain between the men in the GC. You can see Arnsman, Ben O'Connor, Almeida, they're all watching each other. And, when one makes a move, the one who is in danger, he follows on. But Evenepoel and Mas looks to be the strongest. And Mas, the surprising one is, when he goes, he knocks off his effort very quickly. And now we can see the man who got his stage yesterday. He's fighting big time here to stay in, and he has to, because the big move he made yesterday up to 9th place in the GC, he doesn't want to lose that.
He does not want to lose that, and the points that come with it. And naturally enough, don't forget that EF Education sent 5 riders up the road, left to run in the red jersey group. He may well get some plaudits today. None like this man if he manages to land the big one. 2 kilometres from home, he's got a big left-hander hairpin to come, and then he's got a nasty little incline. It does ease just to the very last, but there's no easement behind in terms of the drive, and Enric Mas wants to push on as well. This is that statement that you were mentioning as well, guys. And Robbie, Enric Mas, a stage win would help him, I think, put a little sticking plaster on what must be disappointment. He must have hoped for more out of this race, but even second place is not going to be enough for the Spanish public. Meanwhile, this is Carapaz having already been collected back with Rodriguez. You saw as well Thibaut Pinot was finding himself also already collected and struggling. The man who's thriving is Hessing up front. Can he deliver it, Sean? 25 seconds.
Well, it's looking good. Still, they're marking each other out of it here. And the one is Enric Mas. He seems to have a lot to give here. He puts in that attack. Evenepoel follows him pretty comfortably, and they get a big gap to the others. He has to keep on riding and try and just time trial to the finish here. And if you get back to guessing, well, then you have to wait and see, will Evenepoel contest for the stage victory? But the way he's doing it, the man is gaining is Robert Guessing out front, still 24 seconds.
Oh, what a performance, Robbie. This is gutsy, man.
Well, Hessing's got to hope that they just keep doing what they're doing back in that group of favourites, attacking each other, coming almost to a standstill. Little sprints again, but in fits and spurts, they're not going to catch Hessing, but it cannot come quick enough for the Dutchman. He's starting to tie up, and it is just 20 seconds with still more than a kilometre to go. Meanwhile, Carlos Rodriguez, he has virtually lost his 4th place on GC at the moment to Miguel Angel Lopez, who's leapfrogged over the top of him, and it's now Evenepoel who rides on the front, and it's as if he doesn't want to catch Robert Geesink. I think he'd be quite happy to see him stay away. He's marking everything, but sometimes he gets sucked in. He just can't help himself. He loves to race. They attack, Remco attacks.
Oh, it's like a salmon in a spawning pond, isn't it? They don't need to feed, but they still go for the fly, and that is going to happen surely by somebody back here. But this man's nearly there, kilometre from home, and Hessing may well just do this. It's going to be another painful 300 metres before he takes a big right-hander. It's almost a lazy one, and that's something you could never attach to this man. He's always worked hard. It's usually been for others, and he may well have his heart broken right at the very last. Evenepoel, is he going to come around Enric Mas here? The more they battle against each other, the better it is for Rob Hessing, because suddenly they realise they can't shake each other. Threatening man here is Miguel Angel Lopez, who can find himself late on, but Evenepoel, it's just a little bit of a gap opening up. Lopez just drifts off the back, couple of bike lengths. Enric Mas now knows that didn't work, but look what's happened to the gap. It's come down to 11 seconds, 10 down. It's almost a countdown to a launch. Who's going to be the rocket, though? That's the big question. And Enric Mas still kicks on, looking for this stage win, believing that he might well just be able to bridge over to the flagging Hessing. Hessing, don't forget, it does flatten out, but only in the last 200 metres. He's got 400 metres before he gets to that point where he might just almost fall over the line here. On his case are these two, the great contenders, going toe-to-toe. Overall, they are on the podium, as you know, bossing it for the time being, but this man's bossing the mountain. Is he going to get there? Mas wants that stage win. Evenepoel will try and deny him if they come up here, and I think it's going to be heartbreak for Rob Hessing at the very last. Oh, here they come, 400 metres. The only thing that can save Hessing is if Mas just pops here. Can't do it just for the time being. They're going to grind over to the great man. Oh, that's such a shame for Hessing, I'm afraid. And it's Mas that's going to come around him. And I tell you this, it's going to be Evenepoel that takes the day in the sprint. Still open-mouthed, agape, he goes for it. Mas still not wanting to take the bait because he knows he'll lead Evenepoel into a sprint. A final little right-hander here, and Hessing, is he going to grind it all the way to the line? Still grimacing, and here comes Evenepoel, the heartbreaker. He's going to come round his man at the very last. So indeed is Enric Mas, but it's going to be Remco Evenepoel. Huge statement by this man. Ding dong, the bell rings. It tolls on everybody else, because this man is absolutely in charge. My mountain, my race, my jersey. Oh, that was absolutely amazing. Evenepoel takes it ahead of Enric Mas Hessing, and the rest will come home in awe of the leader of this race. It doesn't get much better than that.
Well, we said when they got onto this climb, it's there for the taking if the favourites really race for it. For a long, long time, it seemed they weren't willing to go out and grab it. And Geesink, he got so heartbreakingly close to the finish before getting caught. And then Remco Evenepoel stamped his authority. He said, you all want to race, you all want to attack. I'll put one more on top of whatever you give me. Takes the stage win in red. You really wanted to see Robert Geesink win this stage. I feel so sorry for him, but that's racing, and Evenepoel is the strongest man in this Vuelta.
Carapaz with a big smile, and indeed one of relief, I think, as well for Carlos Rodriguez. We'll see where he stands overall. Carapaz with a King of the Mountains jersey to his shoulders after, unfortunately, Jay Vine crashed out of this race today. And they come across the line, and chapeau to Carlos Rodriguez. What an amazing day, Sean. So many blows issued, sadly some by the asphalt, but what a knockout punch from this man, Remco Evenepoel.
Well, what a finish he put up there, but Enric Mas had him on the ropes with a couple of 100 metres to go. You could see his movement on the bike. He was making all sorts of movements trying to stay in the wheel, and that's not the normal style of Remco Evenepoel. If Mas had just continued on with that effort for another 100 metres, 150 metres, I think he could have broke him. But when you give a guy, the right to the line, then he sees that finish, they can produce something that, they can just dig deep, and that's what Remco Evenepoel can do. And, when he took him to the side of the line, unbeatable.
What an amazing day of racing. Here's your moment, Robbie.
Yeah, Remco, as soon as he got back, he just lined up Enric Mas, he'd given his best already. He gave everything he had to offload Remco Evenepoel. Just wasn't enough. And Evenepoel, he's got that extra kick. He's got that just extra level that he can go to. Rode Mas out of the wheel, looks back, sees them in the distance, put 2 seconds into them in that last 150 metres. And Geesink, it was his worst nightmare come true. 2 seconds off the win, that's all he needed more to get there. But Evenepoel, shirt open, arms wide, takes another stage win in this Vuelta. And it's only he who can stop himself from winning this by the time we get to Madrid on Sunday, I'd say.
Sean, that was a real star performance there by Remco Evenepoel.
Yes, well, again, when you take him onto the final mountain, he's so difficult, to put into difficulty. And again, in control pretty much all the time there, although Mas did, he did put in some attacks there and had Evenepoel working to stay in the wheel. But again, I think Mas was giving it the 100%, so they are pretty evenly matched. And the rest, of course, were in difficulty when those two top men in this Vuelta really pushed on. But there's days to come, and the next 2 days after this one, you never know. Some days you can finish quite good, but the fatigue can come in the matter of 24 hours. And this race, Mas is not finished. We see the way he's been very aggressive on this final climb.
What a race and what a leader. Don't forget, he's taken his own tumbles in this race, and he has, well, ever since he took the red jersey, he's looked like a winner in waiting. Do we underscore that statement now, Robbie?
We do, but as Sean just said, it can turn around so quickly in a Grand Tour, and I'd love to see Mas just continue in the last mountain stages left in this Vuelta to do what he's been doing, because it's the only way he's going to know if he's given it his best shot to beat Evenepoel. And you never know when that crack might just open up. Evenepoel, he's had bad days already in this Vuelta. He's looking better at the moment, but you can always go back the other way, and that's what Mas has got to cling to.
Sean, we have an amazing Vuelta on our hands here. A worthy leader, naturally enough, but so much more still to come. Here's confirmation of the results. Evenepoel takes it ahead of Mas, Hessing, Hindley, Arensman got a top 5 today. Thibaut Pinot, Ben O'Connor, Ayuso, Miguel Angel Lopez, João Almeida. You realise when you look at that roster, what a great win that was.
William Shakespeare, Molière, Arthur Miller, they have nothing on cycling. The theatrics, the drama, the heartbreak, the heroics. And that's just on a single stage of the Vuelta a Espana. We had it all today, Dan, and it's one of those stages where if you look at the race results, you'd think, so far, so straightforward. It was anything but, wasn't it?
It was hard to keep tabs on everything going on, partly because they didn't have enough cameras on the ground to be with every single group. But it was just a brilliant, brilliant stage in terms of just UAE putting it all on the line with Almeida, trying to put other teams into difficulty. I mean, the amount of attacks that we had on the final climb up towards the finish. But the first thing I want to say is, keep going, Robert Hessing. I'm absolutely gutted for Robert Hessing to be caught so close to the line today.
I tell you what, it's not often even that you display that level of emotion, Dan. You're usually quite stoic when it comes to these things. I was almost in tears when Robert Hessing was caught. He's such a popular figure. He's been in it for such a long time. He is the super domestic. He started this race, of course, with the first red jersey, and he was nailed on for that stage win until he wasn't.
Yeah, well, that's bike racing, isn't it? It's sad to see a lot of the time, but we said this on the second to last climb. He was distance, wasn't he? And when we saw him coming back, there was that opportunity there where he could just sit back a little bit, and he did an amazing job just to do everything he could, make sure he was fresh for that last climb, and he rode perfectly. It was just that cheeky little rascal Mas coming back at the end and taking Remco with him as well.
It seemed so harsh on that one, though, didn't it? I mean, that's bike racing. Better luck next time.
I did foolishly think for just a second that Mas and Evenepoel might allow him to have that stage win, but of course Evenepoel was going for a mountain stage in the red jersey and he took it. But let's relive the last 800 or so metres because this was just thrilling. Adam, talk us through this. Both of you talk us through this.
It was. That was the point there. Mas slowed down a little bit, then started to accelerate again. He didn't look behind him, but Remco looked to be just suffering. He gapped him ever so slightly, so I'm sure his teammate got back on the radio, his director, and just said to him, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And by doing that, he was just in hope that Remco might crack. He didn't want to look behind, which he didn't. He probably should have, because he's just dragging him to line. But because of doing this, they just kept getting closer and closer to that 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 9 again, coming back down to Geesink in the front. Mas knew what he was trying to do, and that's just to open that gap up on Remco, even if it's for a few seconds, more mentally than anything. But I think at this point, when they had Geesink in sight, I think the game changed a little bit. They backed off when they got onto his wheel, and I think then that's when Remco's mentality changed to, I have to stay on him as I can win a stage.
Just before this shot started, we had another overhead shot like this one, where it was the first time that Evenepoel was just 1 or 2 wheel lengths behind Enric Mas. And I think when Mas looks back at the footage, because you can see this is also the first time that Evenepoel's got a real grimace on his face, it's a really weird thing to see when ultimately Evenepoel gapped both of those two at the end by a couple of seconds and won the stage. But I do think he was quite close to having on the ropes then.
I think he will have. What's very interesting that as Mas looked back then, Remco went from had a gritted teeth face. As soon as he looked back, he paid a poker face. And as soon as he looked back in front again, he got the teeth gritted again. But as we said, as soon as he got to this last 200 metres here, Remco did the perfect thing, into that corner, inside line. Mas was on the inside, so he had to come the long way round. And when I mean Remco's sprinting like this, there's not many people in this situation, only apart from Roglic, that would be able to keep up with him and do that. But chapeau to everyone. Robert Geesink, Mas for taking it to Remco, but also Remco, we have to remember, he didn't just follow up that climb. He went on the attack quite a bit as well. He didn't have to do that. He could just sit back and wait, but he took it to him as well.
I think that will be almost at the top of Remco Evenepoel's list of wins. Despite the Liège-Bastogne-Liège earlier on this year and all of his other wins, you could see as he crossed the line how much that meant to him, because yes, he won the time trial, but obviously very different when you're just out there on your own. But to win a stage like that on the road in the red jersey, when I guess your first worry is whether or not you're going to be dropped on that particular day or concede any time, after all those attacks, after all the shenanigans over the course of the stage, to then cross the line in front of everybody else, I think that's going to mean an incredible amount to him. And I think we saw that in his reaction, with his soigneurs and his team members after the race. I mean, that was a really big one in his mind.
Yeah, it was the way he rode up that whole of the final climb and the fact that he was so aggressive. And as we were coming onto the wheel of Robert Hessing, I was making my little notes here and I was thinking, OK, well, it looks like Evenepoel is on his limit. Mas will take some morale from that, some motivation from it. And obviously then he couldn't in the end. But I just wonder how much of that is in the head as well as the legs, Adam, because as you say, when Mas turned around, he wouldn't have known how much Remco Evenepoel was suffering. We could see that, and it just changes on a penny, doesn't it?
It does. Mas as well is the type of rider that really concentrates on his effort. That was the first time he looked round since we saw those pictures then. So he looked round once in 400 metres. He was just concentrating. I just need to do what I'm doing. I need to go flat out and hopefully he's gone. I think in certain instances, when you're making those attacks, put in the initial blow, but then just check and then check again, because at those moments, you will take so much from him. If he just saw Remco a bike length, 2 bike lengths off his wheel, it's amazing how that little bit of mentality in you goes from right on your limit to pushing just over the limit. But it's, I mean, I'm saying this as though it's easy. When your heart rate's 190, you've done 25 minutes at threshold, and then just to go oh, yeah, I'll just squeeze on an extra 10 watts now, 15 watts. It's so difficult.
The good thing that Enric Mas is that later on this evening he can use our digital platforms to go back and re-watch that footage and actually see the grimace firsthand, because I honestly think he will take a lot from that, because that climb at the end really didn't suit him. I mean, we talked about the gradients and possible hesitancy earlier on today. But on Saturday, we have got more climbing. No super steep gradients, but I definitely think he'll take a lot of heart from looking at the way that Evenepoel was grimacing, that there was that one bike length that opened up between them, and just think, I can still try and do something. Because, like Adam said, Evenepoel will obviously try and sit in the wheel as long as he possibly can. And when he's on his limit, just think, I'm going to stick here and hope that Mas looks round, sees me with my poker face right on the wheel, says, well, I've not got rid of him, so I'll sit up. And at that point, when Mas sits up, Evenepoel can recollect his energy and go again another time. It just takes that 1 or 2 extra seconds. And like Adam said, you don't always have those 1 or 2 extra seconds. But I think when he looks back at that, he will know that if I can just go a little bit longer, I might create a gap that could then become more significant.
If I could just do the almost impossible. Excellent from Remco Evenepoel, though. I mean, that is absolutely classic poker bike racing. Well, as we are trying to digest what was a magnificent stage of racing, let's get the take from our man on the ground, Alberto Contador.
Incredible final in this stage. The final victory for the leader with the red jersey for Remco Evenepoel. For sure, great day for him, put some second to Enric Mas, but for other part, we saw Enric Mas very aggressive. He attacked maybe 4 or 5 times, only can follow him Remco Evenepoel, and for sure, we will see a big battle Saturday. I think it's the last option for try to win this Vuelta a España. Enric was second 2 times at the Vuelta a España, and for sure he will try again, improve and are first. For sure, don't will be sure. We saw an incredible and very strong Remco Evenepoel, but the Vuelta is not finished.
It's not finished yet, and you would never know from this general classification table the drama that we had today, because Remco Evenepoel remains in the lead and extends that lead indeed by 6 seconds. Enric Mas at 2:07, Juan Ayuso in third, but as you can see, Carlos Rodriguez has dropped down to 5th, Miguel Angel Lopez up to 4th. João Almeida, after all of that effort, remains in 6th. He's 25 seconds now behind Carlos Rodriguez. And we will be mentioning Rodriguez in just a moment because he had a phenomenal ride today. But I do want to go back briefly to Enric Mas, because you can say everything about Remco Evenepoel today, and he was a true champion today. The way he rode, the way he kept his head, the way he played that poker face and sprinted for the line, it was magnificent. We should, though, give praise to Enric Mas as well, because the way he has ridden this entire race, he's finished second twice in this race. Another second place arguably doesn't mean an awful lot, but he is riding magnificently in this race, isn't he?
It's probably the best we've ever seen him, to be honest. I think he's just come up against Remco. He's the best we've ever seen Remco as well. Both of them, compared to where Mas was at the Tour especially, it's like night and day. It's like a whole new rider. The way that he's attacking it and approaching it and just throwing everything at it day by day, and he's not just doing one attack and hoping it sticks. He's trying, and as Dan said earlier, that climb did not suit him at all today. It's a lot easier to sit on the wheel and hang on. You get the benefit of the shelter, but the way that he kept doing that, knowing the climb, knowing that Remco would get that benefit, that didn't stop him, and he kept going, persisting with it. So you can only tip your hat to him and say chapeau, because he's not giving up all the way up until 300 metres to go.
And to all of them in this race, Dan, because often we get to stage 18 of a Grand Tour and everyone's riding defensively. They're trying to protect their positions, especially when we have this relegation situation and there are crucial points on the line. You'd be forgiven for thinking, you know what, I'm going to take this. I'm going to try to preserve my position. We're not seeing that.
No, sorry, I think we are seeing that.
That question was aimed to me.
Sorry, I know what I'm putting in. I think it is massively aimed towards that, is that everyone's trying to protect their position, but because they're trying to do so, one rider will go up the road and then another one has to protect their position and chase him, and because he's gone up the road, it's just like a domino effect.
But there's no defensive riding in that. Everyone's then riding aggressively against each other. Exactly. So maybe they're trying to defend their position, but it's led to really aggressive racing.
I think that's exactly what it is. Sorry.
Dan, do you want to say?
Well, no, we saw that play out, didn't we?
You've changed since you're leading this competition.
Like Ben O'Connor was continually trying to take advantage of the stalemate between Enric Mas and Evenepoel, because it was very clear to everybody that Evenepoel was not going to work with Mas. He was going to follow his attacks, make his own, or sit on his wheel. So O'Connor was trying to take advantage of that, but Tymon Arensman, kept on chasing him down. He's like, well, you're not going to take my place on GC. Lopez did the same with a couple of riders as well. Astana had to chase Joao Almeida. So there were so many different dynamics going on within that top 10, and everybody, like we were saying, just trying to protect their own position, not lose places.
Apart from Almeida and Ayuso.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that.
Even they worked together towards the end there.
Dare I suggest we were, and still are, incredibly sad that Primož Roglic has left this race, but has it become arguably even more dynamic because we don't have him and Remco eyeing each other up, and we don't have Jumbo-Visma putting a stranglehold on the race?
Yes and no. I think what Mas is doing is ultimately what Roglic would have done as well, but it's just Roglic, and that's no disrespect to Mas, but through the history of this sport, Roglic has been better in recent years.
We've got more of a fight for third, which seems
we
to
have,
matter.
yeah, but that would be the same thing, is just more of Mas trying to attack Primož, which then would result in probably Primož to responding from that. So I think it'd be relatively the same. I think it would just be heightened just because of Primož's reputation, what we know he is. We'd expect it more. From Mas, we're expecting it now because of the way he's being. And I don't even think at the start of this race, even until a few days ago, we probably didn't expect that from him today on a climate that didn't suit him. So he is surprising us. And I dare to say if Primož was here, he'd be in a tricky situation trying to win the race but also protect his second place as well.
I guess we're all the more delighted because it is unexpected and it's a brilliant thing to see. Well, let's hear from the man who retains the race lead and indeed extends it after those efforts. It's Remco Evenepoel.
You were a time trial stage winner. You had a comfortable lead, but now you are a mountain stage winner. How good is it?
Yeah, that's it's really I think a new achievement in my life. It was a pretty tough stage with really hard climbs in the final. Early attacks from UAE with Almeida. So the race was really hard, but we always stay calm. And I think that's what I learned the most, is to always stay calm. And it's like in the last kilometer, we were like still 15 seconds from Gesink or 20. And in the end, we come to him at 300 and I go at 200 because I knew it was quite flat. And in the winter, I worked a lot on my sprint after big efforts, so it paid off.
You said it's a big achievement, but it looks like only at the very end you have looked for the stage win.
Yeah, exactly. The goal is always to try and let the breakaway go, because then the bonifications are gone. And in the end, Klaas said that I was gone with Hendrik. So that's the moment that I made a click and told to myself, now you go for the stage as well. Because winning a mountaintop in a red jersey is amazing. And Hendrik is a really fair play guy. Like in the end, we worked together to go for the stage win because he also wanted to try and go, but in the end, it's a sprint. And I think it was a big race from the team. Perfect day. I think this was the most perfect day ever.
Are you even more confident?
Thanks, mate. Thank you. See you later.
Are you even more confident to win La Vuelta today?
Well, it's still not done, you know. Still one really hard stage to come, and they will for sure attack me. But maybe now it's even more easy to control it because I feel that my legs are really good. So this is very good for me and for the team for the last 2 days. 3 days, sorry.
He's fast-forwarding to Madrid already and backing up what you said, Dan, essentially, the most perfect day ever. And I wonder, is anybody else watching that interview and thinking, oh, Tour de France 2023?
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, like he said, he's got 3 more days to go in this race. But if we get to the end of it, and he's won the Vuelta, plus 2 stage wins at least along the way, we will all start thinking about next year, because I think his manager, Lefebvre, has already said quite a few months ago, this year it's about the Vuelta, focusing on that, see where he gets. And then next year, the focus might well be all on the Tour de France. And I think we'd all love to see that.
Yeah.
We'd love to see Remco Evenepoel up against Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, hopefully a healthy Egan Bernal. All these riders that are so young still to this day, up against each other, battling it out for the Tour de France.
It's giving me goosebumps already. Yeah, well, Van Aert going for his first yellow jersey. Well, let's rewind to drama early in the stage, of course, because It all kicked off right from the off. This was the crash that unfortunately saw Jay Vine leave the race in the back of an ambulance. And of course, one of those Jumbo-Visma riders you see there is Robert Hessink, along with Sam Oomen, who also made it into the breakaway. So phenomenal riding from them. And the level of damage that we saw for Jay Vine, obviously, is absolutely devastated. But also Carlos Rodriguez and the ride that he put in today, Dan.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was really incredible what he managed to do. When you saw Carlos Rodriguez and how much of his kit and his skin he'd lost after that crash, you've got pictures now. I mean, they did their best to bandage him up during the stage, which is not easy in itself when you're still rolling along. I mean, this just reminds us it's not like any other sport when you can be taken off to the side of the pitch, be attended to, probably be taken off for good, to be honest, to recover ready for a future match.
I can't imagine a footballer finishing 90 minutes now.
No,
anyway.
And so he can be really proud today. I mean, he's lost a place on the general classification, but to be within a couple of minutes of the best riders in the world on a climb like that at the end of a stage like today, absolutely hard as nails.
And to only lose one place in general classification, he could easily have been spat at the back of that race today, Adam.
I think that mentally, having that coming down, all that stuff, feeling that pain all through the race, mentally you could have cracked as well, quite easily, you know. You just said, what am I doing this? I'm just in tatters. I've got half my arm hanging off here. I don't want to be here. But, I mean, as Dan said, hard as nails. And, I mean, there's not many people that would be able to get back up and stay up there right on GC. He's lost one place, yes, but one of the rides of the day almost.
Respect for so many riders today. We are in a privileged position to be able to watch this sport, aren't we? Well, let's hear from the man who nearly made it to the stage win. Not quite, Robert Hessink.
Robert, that was an amazing performance. Sadly, you couldn't make it to the finish and have this victory, but tell us how it's been today's stage for you.
Yeah, it was a great race until the last 200 meters, I would say. No, really tough day. In the beginning, it took some time for the break to go, and I bridged as the last one with Igita, and happy to be in the group, to survive all the climbs in such a strong group. And then the last climb, with all the little guys, they are so explosive. They can go choop, 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 and I have to have my own steady pace, so I went early. Caught Gisbert, and then managed to drop him. Well, the rest of it, it was okay, but it was just a little short.
Today was the first chance for you guys to be in the breakaway, and there were 3 of you Jumbo-Visma riders there, so you were going for that stage victory.
Yeah. Yesterday was a hard day with Primoz not starting after his crash. We all came here to win again with him, and took me 24 hours to reset. But today was really good, and I was happy to do this, to be there. Would have been slightly happier if I would have won, but yeah, life.
You have one more chance to go.
Might need a few days to recover from this one. Maybe the second last day, yeah. Navasarada is always super tough, so yeah. No worries, mate. It's always super tough, so might be a day. But first, a little bit of rest, I guess. Thank you.
Well, he's still smiling at least, and it sounds and looks like there's a bit of a party cracking out behind him, so hopefully you get to enjoy a little bit of that. Well, as ever, the Vuelta isn't the only big race that we are keeping an eye on here on the breakaway. We'll be looking at some other action for viewers on digital. If you're watching on Eurosport, we'll see you to look ahead to stage 19 in just a moment. Well, we've had stage 5 of the Tour of Britain today, and I have been accused, quite rightly I have to say, of spoiling the results for some viewers on occasion. So consider this to be your spoiler, and I'm going to hand over to Dan to spoil it instead. Dan, what happened at the end of stage 5?
As ever, whilst I was commentating on the World, I couldn't keep all my eyes on the Tour of Britain.
That's both of them.
So I had half of an eye on the Tour of Britain. Yeah, it ended up being quite an attritional stage. I think they thought it was going to be a big bunch sprint, and we had a sprint of sorts, but certainly quite a small group. In the end, the guy on the left there of Bora Hansgrohe, Jordi Meijers, the Belgian, managed to take the win, which in itself was quite remarkable because Just a few weeks ago at the Tour of Poland, he broke his collarbone and his nose. So to come back racing again and take a stage win there, because, I mean, he's a good sprinter, but not a prolific winner, Jordi Mears. Importantly, Tom Pidcock was third and picked up bonus seconds, but having a quick look just now at the overall classification, it looks like Corbin Strong of Israel Premier Tech also managed to take some bonus seconds along the way, because on the provisional GC standings that I've seen, he's now up to second place with Tom Pidcock down to third.
It's interesting to see how Pidcock is riding this, Adam, isn't it? Because as we were discussing yesterday, he's dropped himself out of the Worlds, and it looked in the initial stages that he was very deliberately not contesting very much. He took a nature break, didn't he, in the last 10K on stage 1, is that right?
Yeah, he did that though because he's very, very good. He can drop back. It was a big headwind, so he just dropped back in the last 6K and it was slightly uphill. So it wasn't, for someone that was really looking for that stage win, big deal for Tom. I'll get back on in a minute, it'll be fine. But he has no choice but to do these finishes. If he can attack, the British roads are not, there's not a big climb, there's not a super steep climb in any of these stages towards the finish. So for him, he has to contest these sprints, and he's not the fastest person in the world. He's certainly very, very quick, but he needs it to be a lot harder to really shine in those sprints. So Tom's just doing what he can every day to try and stay up there, but I think everyone in that race, I've not watched a lot of it, is leaving it up to Sky. They're watching Sky. They know Pidcock's watching it. Also in Ineos.
Looking at the sky, I hope it doesn't rain again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's British racing. It makes it very exciting for us.
Dan, we know that you're living your best life here every day with myself and Adam and watching the Vuelta, but tomorrow's one of those days where you might actually prefer to be somewhere else.
Well, it's actually not tomorrow, it's the next day. I've got one day ahead of myself when I was speaking to you earlier. But
Probably tomorrow anyway, though.
Around my home roads, finishes in Ferndown, but goes over a lot of my old training roads like... not Bullbarry, it goes over Bullbarry, Whiteways, and Milton Abbas, which is not a classified climb, but it's a very pretty climb, so I'm looking forward to watching that.
Spoiler in for any DSs there, they'll be like, write that down, write that down.
Yeah, it is already written down on the race profile.
It's not a surprise where the race is going to go. I do like how you struggled there to remember what your old training rides were, though,
No,
Dan. You're giving away
time. It's been quite some time. But yeah,
Can I just add on that? Dan did go and check the Stravas to see where he was on all those climbs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and any Stravas to be beaten?
No, I got beaten a few years ago.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, we will be returning our attentions to the Vuelta a Espana when we rejoin our Eurosport viewers in just a moment, looking ahead to stage 19. Welcome back to our viewers on Eurosport. We're looking ahead to stage 19. And Dan, I was intrigued earlier that you said that Enric Mas, if he watches back at the end of today, he might take some solace from the fact that Remco Evenepoel was clearly struggling behind him. But what can he do on a stage like tomorrow?
Tomorrow's a tough one. We've got a couple of climbs. I think it's 2 laps. So, again, it's not dissimilar in that the gradients aren't particularly severe. So it will be, once again, difficult for them. I'm not sure whether they will even try tomorrow, given the nature of the stage, and whether they'll put all their eggs in the basket of stage 20. But what you can see is it's out from the blocks. I know Mads Pedersen said earlier in the race that he thinks he might be able to get over these climbs, because if you see the second one there, it peaks with 36 kilometres still remaining at the end of the stage. So if it's not too fast, they might be able to get Pedersen over the climbs, Trek Segafredo, and try and take another stage win. I think it's a tough ask for him, given the length of the climb, but you just never know.
And given the fact that he seemed to end up over a barrier in that crash earlier in the stage today, we've no idea what kind of injuries he might be carrying, but what kind of a rider or who in particular would you be looking out for tomorrow?
You're trying to get some tips for tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I don't know who's first in the prediction, and I certainly would not be taking tips from Alan Blythe in this race, thank you.
Dan tomorrow, I think, his first pick, but I think all our favourites is Fred Wright.
Yeah, I mean, in all senses, really. Let's have a little look then at how we're doing on the prediction, because we've been told that we have to. Shamefully, none of us got any points today, did we? I think me and Adam were closest. I don't know if that gives us something of a moral victory at least.
You were second closest.
That's true, but that'll do. Anyway, it matters nothing, not a jot, because Dan Lloyd is frankly now unbeatable. I'm not yet, Adam, so our particular fight is still on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Anyway, we are hurtling towards our final weekend of Grand Tour racing of 2022. Just 3 more stages of this Vuelta left, and there are some huge ones before we get to Madrid. We would just like to say, take a moment to say all of our thoughts here at Eurosport GCN are with the royal family at this time. We will see you tomorrow.